It's after midnight. Let's do this. Good evening, Hampton Roads. Good evening, Northeast North Carolina, and especially good evening to you, Outer Banks. This is one of those nights where you could argue this is a special edition of First Warning Live because we want to get you ready for the overnight. Maybe if you are dealing with high winds right now or increasing wind, perhaps maybe you're seeing some rise in waters from storm surge. We want to maybe address all that. But my name is David Aldrich, Chief Meteorologist of WTKR News 3 Television, and you are watching First Warning Live. It is sponsored by Marco's Pizza, which we're giving away pizza later Thursday evening. But it is technically Thursday now, but I wanted this to be more of a platform for you. So the things that we covered during the 7:40 to 8:40, I guess it was almost an hour, 49 minutes. If there's something that you want to share with me and you live in the Outer Banks, this is your opportunity. This is a chance for you to let everybody else who's watching what you're seeing and feeling and sensing. I mean, the winds are pretty strong. We saw during our 11 o'clock newscasts, some of our reporters, our neighborhood news reporters, including Erin Holly, also John Hood, others were out in the elements today. But this is now still a Category 2, but I say that's academic because, as I said during the last live stream on Wednesday evening, all you need is 111, and right now it's 110. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, a tortoise walks faster than 1 mile per hour, but that's all that they made a difference. And the gusts are Category 4. I mean, a 130 is a minimum Category 4. So it's moving north at 16, but just to recap where this storm is, it's roughly 215 miles away from Cape Hatteras. 215 miles. Now, if you were watching me earlier today, one of the things I wanted you to know was that if you were to take a measurement tool, what is the distance between this, say Cape Hatteras, come out here, it's really not that far. 215 is what the Hurricane Center said. So that's, I mean, they said the winds themselves, if they were within 265, you would feel tropical storm force winds. So if you're within 265 miles, you're in the tropical storm. That's why we all have a tropical storm warning in effect from the eastern shore all the way down to the Outer Banks. And they were feeling hurricane force winds. Yesterday was, I believe, it was 80 miles, but now it's 105. I got my numbers here. Probably it's 105. So 105 miles away from the eye, you can actually feel hurricane force. We're not going to be that close, but we're certainly within the two numbers here. So we're within the uprights for a place like Hatteras. So if you're on the call, let me know. I'll do my best to put your name on here. I won't go through all these maps that I did before because I'm more interested to know what you're seeing, feeling, and sensing at this particular hour. Some of the earlier comments that came in after I signed off. Let's see here. Doris had a very good point. I want to point out Doris. And Doris, thank you for sharing this with us. This was maybe a few hours ago. But she had mentioned she's going with the flow because it's out of our control. I couldn't agree with you more, Doris, because I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm just the messenger, right? I don't take credit for even when the days are good. It's kind of like you see somebody in the office walking down the hall and they, hey, nice weather you gave me. And I go, I didn't give it to you. I didn't give it to you because I don't want to be given credit for the good days, and I certainly don't want to take credit when they're lousy days in terms of the weather. I know I'm just the messenger. So you can embrace the messenger. Like people don't like the messenger. You don't like the final message. I get it. Some people have that type of tendency, but I'm just doing what I see or calling the balls and strikes like an umpire as best I can. Anyway, so thank you for that update. But as we go back to the maps, this is again running about 215 miles. I did put together a little buoy information. We had a 54-mile-an-hour gust here last hour, but at 12 midnight it changed to 49. This one's still 51. So when I said this thing was going to unfold between midnight and 8 a.m., I didn't suggest or want to suggest that it was over at 8 a.m. It's just that's when the effects are really going to be felt in the coastal areas of North Carolina, primarily the Outer Banks. But those are the gusts on the buoys. You might say, well, what is it here locally? Well, that's kind of easy. It's like 33 in Hatteras. Right now we have a wind gust at midnight in Rodanthe of 31. If you're watching me from Rodanthe or Mania or Kitty Hawk, please tell me what you're seeing. Please tell me what you're sensing or feeling, because I can tell you other parts of Dare County might be seeing these winds increase as well, and I just want to be able to magnify or showcase some of the comments that might be coming, because all of us are going to have, invariably with storms, we're going to have a different experience than maybe somebody 10, 15, 20, 50 miles away. It could be a very different sense because this is a coastal issue more so than it is an inland Virginia issue. That's just not the case. But if you've got a message, you want to share something with me, I see that there is a comment coming in now. I think it is, well, yeah, we got a news note here. I think it's from our WTKR News. I could put this on the screen. But just to remind you that we're having some issues on some of these roads. Earlier today, I know that the Highway 12 is also having some issues with the water, the ocean overwash, as they say. But here's what to expect. Overnight tonight, we're going to continue on the coastal areas. That's the theme, which means if you're in other parts of North Carolina or Virginia, this is really not your storm. It's going to be based on tracks. So we're pushing the words OBX, especially Outer Banks and coastal areas. That's a check mark. What about the threats? It's still going to be flooding, but it may not be flooding at least to start, meaning I expect there will be a sharp increase in wind for the early part of today. We're already there. Increase in wind between, say, midnight and 8 a.m., and then we're going to see the winds change direction, more of a northerly direction, and that's going to cause more sound side flooding. It's going to cause more storm surge to other places that didn't get water in the morning. You're going to get it in the afternoon and evening, especially during high tide. So those are the threats that we're worried about, followed up with some maybe heavy downpours. There could be 1 to 2 inches in some of these bands, and you can see it spinning. I mean, it's spinning like a top right here. So those are the concerns that we have, at least in the short term. And so if you're staying up late with me, you want to share with me what you're sensing. Maybe you have a storm anxiety. We touched on that last night. Some people have it. Sometimes you get it when you're a kid. You just you can't shake it sometimes. When the thunder goes kaboom, it can be a bit unnerving. If the winds start howling, all of that can play a role. But this tonight was really for Wednesday night through Friday morning. I don't expect to find any vast improvement in places like the Outer Banks until we reach Friday itself. So that's where things are at the moment. So if you got a call, got a message, let me know. I'm looking at some of these other comments that might have been in from yesterday or really last night. Some of those comments, keep them coming. But I want to keep moving because if you didn't get this information, we are currently now under a tropical storm warning. Now, those winds seem like kind of unusual. I mean, if it's over 50, let's be fair, they could be closer to 60 before daybreak tomorrow in Cape Hatteras. So even though I put over 50, there could be a 50 plus in there because it could be much higher in this part of the Outer Banks and maybe a little bit less in Duck and even lesser degree in Virginia Beach and Norfolk. So that's my concern for that. We look at this again. Here's what to expect is the ocean overwash, about storm surge of 2 to 4 feet. You're going to couple that with some tidal flooding Thursday afternoon, evening to high tide. And then you could throw in 20 to 40 mile an hour winds. That's sustained. So there is a difference. Obviously, you hear the word big numbers, 60 or 65. That would be a gust. That would be certainly on the table, but that's going to be pretty much confined, I think, for the southern part of the Outer Banks, where they could find some stronger gusts here in the next few hours. I'm just checking the comments. I want to be able to put the numbers on the screen here. The forecast expectation obviously is going to be very dynamic. It's going to change from time to time, and so you might have a different experience than your neighbor. That's just kind of part of the territory. But we're watching these numbers of 20 to 40 for actual winds, sustained, and gusts about 40 to 60, I think is within reason. Now here's another look at some of the banding that's going on right now. If you're on the call, we'd love to say hi to you. I got some people watching, I can see. I'm going to put a big care icon here because some of them are watching. I've got some people at the moment. But the comments that might be coming in, let me know because I want to put them on the screen. Some of this is as casual as a phone call could ever be. You have my undivided attention, and some of them are now trickling in, so thank you for that. As we look at the radar, I got Brian. Let's see here. I got Brian's note here. Brian Kerwin, I believe, is his name. Brian, thanks for being here with us. He says tropical storm warnings are sustained winds over 39. That's correct. All the way up to 73. But that's a big range. We kind of addressed that yesterday or the day before because, I mean, if you think about it in terms of football, you have upright, right? 39 on this end, 73 on this end. That's a big range because maybe it's on the closer end of 42. Some maybe in the Outer Banks might be closer to 55 or 65. So it is a range. But he says gusts have nothing to do with established warnings. Well, I understand that too. There's elements too with storm surge, coastal flooding. There's a combination to that decision. But Brian, I appreciate that too. So let's have that conversation. Are you going to be staying up throughout the night? Are you going to sleep like a baby? Maybe you stay up past 12:15 most nights. I'm watching these bands come across, and you can see the circulation center there now moving across the parts of the southern Atlantic. The front that we are most happy to see, to some degree, is the one that's moving through West Virginia, because that's helping eventually make a turn so that this storm won't be making landfall in the true sense of a hurricane, but we will feel the effects of the tropical storm force winds. Erin's enhanced satellite looks like the following, and you can see the wind gusts are not all that impressive. But if you're just joining us, you can see that we've seen some buoys that have been running about 45, maybe even 55 in the last hour. Currently, the highest wind gust, or current wind gust we see now, seems to be in Hatteras at 33 and Rodanthe at 31. Got a note from Kelsey Adams. Got her on the note here. Let me fly in here and say hi to her. She's asking, will Virginia Beach get any effects from this hurricane? Well, maybe some tropical storm effects, given the fact that we've got storm surge, we've got coastal flooding, high surf advisories, rip currents. There's a lot of at play, and this could be like a 1-2 punch, Kelsey, meaning we could see those winds ramp up over the next 8 hours. And then we could see more of the flooding, more storm surge and a northerly wind where we're pushing this water down into our area. So it's going to change. That's why I said I don't expect to see vast improvement in Virginia Beach or vast improvement in the Outer Banks until we get closer to Friday. It's going to be a gusty day during the day on Thursday, and it's really not going to go to sleep on Friday. It's just going to be a slow decrease in the winds, as I'm going to show you here in just a moment. So as far as our satellite radar, what do we have? We got some scattered clouds maybe in Elizabeth City, more cloud cover over the Isle of Wight. This is a 12:13 time frame. You can see the time at the top of the screen here, right over 12:13 a.m. But what we are going to watch is some of these bands. It's not going to be necessarily heavy rain that comes from the sky. We're more concerned about the push of water, the rise of water that'll come in off the ocean because of the strength that Erin is exhibiting. So Rodanthe's getting a few rain showers. Looks like there's been some rain over parts of maybe Nag's Head, over toward Kill Devil Hills, and maybe a few drops squeezing into Roanoke Island. But Hatteras is getting some of that activity even as I speak. So there's Hurricane Erin. We knew this thing was coming, but we knew that it wouldn't necessarily be a direct landfall situation. What I find interesting is that this was 80 miles. This was 80 miles yesterday. So I'm going to put the 80 here. So now, away from the center, it's 105. Yesterday at this time, this was scheduled to be about 230. So 230, now it's 65. So we've added 35 miles from the eye as far as tropical storm force winds. I can put that on the screen there. I believe that'll come on. So we're seeing the tropical storm force winds are now extending about 265, and it's about 215 away from Hatteras right now. So this is why it can be very misleading. There's a big misconception when people see only the cone without the explainer. Sometimes people think, well, it's going to miss us. What's not going to miss us is some heavy water that shows up in Ghent, Norfolk, and other areas where we see coastal flooding. If you've lived here a long time, and out of the spirit of transparency, I have not lived here a long time. I've been here 6 months, not even 6 months. But I can tell you, I've seen, because the station here on Bush Street, we get a lot of water when it rains. Even just a half inch to an inch can make it very noticeable. Big puddles, big splashes. But when we start to see more tidal flooding, the coastal flood warning runs about 1 to 3 feet of inundation, and tidal waterways, shorelines are going to be most susceptible for that which we're speaking. That doesn't really start till later this morning. What will be a thing to watch is the high tide. High tide occurs between about 7 and 9 p.m. tomorrow night. So we are looking at what will be maybe a bad situation get worse with a 5.8 moderate. We're talking about the tide time not only in Sewell's Point, but also in Duck. Duck's going to be considerably higher, closer to 7, so you're in the major flooding concerns there. So if you're in the Outer Banks, our concern is going to be closer to 7 p.m., maybe 6 or 7, as this begins to ramp up. High tide at that time will occur roughly at that moment. All right, so I'm just checking in with comments. Let's see here. Audrey wants to ask a general question. I think, you know what, if I don't have the answer to some of these questions, in the spirit of prayer, I'll ask, or I'll look it up. But some of you might know the answers to some of your own questions, like what's Virginia Beach look like when it floods, when you have storm surge? Some of you probably lived through Isabel. Maybe you lived through Erin. So far you've lived through Erin, but maybe you have lived through Irene, or perhaps maybe Floyd. Floyd was a big Franklin storm. I do know that. But I would say it's always best to have an emergency kit. To wait till midnight before it starts is probably not the wisest idea, because we've been doing these mandatory evacuations in places like Ocracoke and Hatteras, and now parts of Corolla. Corolla has had some of the areas where 4x4s explore. Those were evacuated. The orders came out. So for several days now, people have had about maybe 36 to 48 hours to prepare. But having an emergency kit, having snacks, change of clothes, bottles of water, that's probably a good start, even the back of your vehicle. But you might want to also make sure your battery of your phone is charged, fully charged, because if you happen to lose power in the Outer Banks, particularly where the winds are strongest, you might have reason to be upset that my phone, I've lost charge. This way you can stay informed, and the phone can be a great resource for you for getting new information, and having our First Warning Weather app is another free option you could definitely take there as well. Just want to remind you, we are watching and keeping a very watchful eye on this particular storm. It's not the big deal. Maybe for some of you, it's just simply, maybe it's just dress rehearsal. Right? Maybe you've moved here, because I came in from Tennessee. Maybe you moved here from Ohio or Kentucky. I'm just thinking of states that are landlocked away from hurricanes. And maybe this is your first experience with a hurricane. I was doing this very same thing that I'm doing right now. What is it, 12:20? I was on for like 2.5 hours or more during Helene. So Helene's not in Tennessee. Well, Helene did affect Tennessee. Took out Interstate 40 around the Tri-Cities. And we had a washed out roads. We couldn't get back and forth to Asheville. Couldn't happen, because we got about 5 or 6 inches in Knoxville. About 10 to 12 inches fell in the Great Smoky Mountains, and just over toward Asheville, they had 20, 25, and 30 inches around Busick, northeast of Asheville. So a lot of rain, amazing stories, and we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Katrina in 2005. For those of you old enough to remember, I remember sitting in an AMS conference in South Jersey where Dr. Steve Lyons said that was a Category 5, yes, but it made landfall as a 3. Because it wasn't until the levees broke in 2005 that's when all heck broke loose, and it really did. Katrina is a very somber occasion that we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of that, and we're now looking at Helene as saying that was a bad way to handle a storm as well. So I digress. We've got strong reason to believe that high tide tomorrow, well later today, will be a problem for places like Duck. This is 7 p.m. Thursday, and a moment ago we just looked at Sewell's Point. If you're just joining us, Sewell's Point might be closer to 9 p.m., 7 to 9 p.m. As that ramps up, we'll be watching that as well. So a lot to take in, but as I move on, the sounds and rivers will see the big issue. Now keep in mind, the winds are going to be more northeast, perhaps to start, and as this storm starts to pivot, you might see this more northerly later in the day today. And then maybe lastly, once it begins to pivot even further, it's going to be northwest. So you're going to find the water problems inside the sounds and rivers might be 1 to 3, but it will be changeable with 2 to 4 feet for the Outer Banks is the expectation as far as the storm surge and water rise. Storm surge could obviously go all the way up toward the eastern shore, all the way up into Delaware where I grew up, and South Jersey, you can see there in green. What is interesting to note is the rip currents, and these 9 to 12 feet expectations today, child's play compared to Hatteras. It could be closer to 10 to 20 for them. But there's obviously good reason to stay out of the water. A lot of the beaches are going to be pounded here over the next 24 hours. As long as these winds continue to move and the winds continue to change direction, we have good reason to think that there's going to be some issues. Okay, just looking at some comments. Let's see here. Audrey was asking, let's see, good question. I guess, good question, I don't know, for some people at the threshold. Will Hurricane Erin affect the schools in Norfolk? It just depends on the decision makers who guide those decisions. That's usually a superintendent. Usually if they're in communication with emergency managers, they'll coordinate, hey, what you're thinking before we get somebody on a bus. Do you want kids in a flood-prone area like Ghent? There's going to be a lot of things that have check a box, right? They're going to have to go through the checklist to see, is this wise to keep school in? Some schools might just decide, hey, we probably don't want to have that going on. And others might say, hey, this wasn't a big deal, because it's about location, location, location. If you're in Franklin, this is not going to be a big story, this storm. If you're in Emporia or Wakefield to the west, this is just not your storm. It's not going to affect you in the same way that it would affect Duck or perhaps maybe Nag's Head or even Hatteras and Ocracoke. It just wouldn't. Got over the comments that might be coming in. Let's see here. I got Sean. Sean, you have a question. Let's put you on the screen. I put you on there. I thought it was going to come through. There it is. It says, not me. He says, I'm going surfing at the ocean front. Then I'm going to fly my kite at Mount Trashmore. Well, hey, as long as you're safe and you're accountable to somebody, family member, what have you, that's all I would like to maintain. Because I like to say, whatever neighborhood you belong to, just check on your neighbors, right? You get opportunities when it was super hot and humid in July, because heat's the #1 killer. I hate to be a spoiler. Heat kills more Americans during the summer months than any other, more than rip currents, more than tornadoes. And rip currents are a big deal too. It's like #3. So it's heat, floods, and then rip currents. Those are the top 3. But if you're going to be in the neighborhood, just make sure everybody's cared for. Because some people don't have means for transportation. They might be walking with a cane or a wheelchair, and they just need to have them checked on. So it's an opportunity. Look at it that way. It could be an opportunity to fly a kite at Mount Trashmore, but it could also be an opportunity to check on your neighbor. That's just how I think about it. Okay, so let's see. I got a note from Real Baby. Is that your name? Real Baby. It works for me. If that's your handle, when's it going to be hitting Portsmouth? When you say when is it the winds? Well, I'm going to show you that in a moment. Are you saying the rain? Because there's probably not going to be a lot of rain. Just not. Most I would see is 1 to 2 inches in some of the bands around Hatteras or Kerala or Nags Head. Some of the bands might affect them. They might get that kind of rain. But as far as this hitting Portsmouth per se, it's really going to be the flooding issue, coastal flooding, and tidal issues that we're going to be watching into the night to later Thursday night. We talked about the timing already. So this is where we are at the moment. It is now 12:25. I want to say a special thanks to my sponsor, Marco's Pizza, because they're giving away some pizza. Hey, you might as well get some free pizza. If you're going to fly a kite, Real Baby, you might as well get some free pizza. The participating contest locations are on the screen. We're going to be giving away free pizza for a year. Who does that? Well, Marcos loves weather, so we do that through the help of Marcos Help. This is our website, WTKR.com. Take you about 1 minute to 2 minutes to put in your information so we can mail you a certificate, and that certificate looks like this. So we're going to be giving away free pizza. Each month is at the bottom. You would check off August, then you would check off September like a punch card, and every time you got a new month, you get a large one topping for free. That's kind of cool, and we'll be announcing those winners later tonight, Thursday night. So just wanted to throw that out there. All right, back to the fun that we're having at a late night. Now, why is it those cones very rarely seem like they're on target? Well, they're very accurate from the center of the storm because this is representative of the 74 plus winds with hurricane, but it's still a long distance. Even this hurricane map, you can see it was generated by the Hurricane Center, is still about 133 miles away. So even that probability decreases once you get close to the shore. But because this was such a large storm, over 500 miles wide, is it any wonder that we're dealing with the effects of wind, surf, and of course, the coastal concerns? So this was just as an illustration. Now, what will happen tonight and into tomorrow morning, you see very little movement. This is 6 o'clock in the morning, and the effects will still be hovering in some cases over Hatteras and over the Outer Banks. But if we carry this maybe another hour or two, there's 9 o'clock, still some high surf, and now the winds are coming more of a northerly direction, right? It's more northerly as this storm system begins to move away, and there she goes. So we will continue to watch the gusty winds heading into the day on Friday. I mean, the winds are going to move away, but the gusts will be slow to exit for sure. As far as the wind forecast, this is another look from the Hurricane Center's data. This is where they put that 39 mile an hour wind gust probability, and it's more favorable for a Hatteras, for a Rodanthe, for a Duck, than it would be for a Portsmouth, right? Or even for a Virginia Beach, where you might say, it's not so bad. You could easily see gusts on your Thursday, 40, 45. But because this is just a dress rehearsal, right? For some of you that remember the bigger storms, and I mean, you got to go way back if it's like Hazel 1954, but maybe it was Matthew for you. I believe there was historic flooding in Chesapeake from Matthew, which really wasn't that long ago, but you could go back to Irene and Manio. You got a high water mark there. And if you are old enough to remember 1999 with Floyd, you could go to Fred's restaurant and you could see the watermark there. It was like 21, 22 feet, very high. So we're not there, right? Those are the historical events. This is a gut check. I mean, what would have you done? What would you have done differently if you knew that storm was coming? Would you have packed it up? Because there are a lot of people who said, I'm not leaving, I'm just going to ride it out. I mean, is that the safest thing to do? Probably not. Not if there's a mandatory evacuation order. That's probably when you want to get out of town and follow the advice of the local leaders. That's just me. Now, let's focus on this. What's likely to happen between now, it's about 12:26 or so, to 2 a.m.? I mean, do you see anything different here? What jumps out off the page? And if you're looking at South Side, you could throw in Chesapeake, Greenbrier, you could throw in Portsmouth, you could throw in Norfolk. 32 is what the modeling is suggesting here. So, I mean, that's not that big of a deal, some would say. But if it continues for hours, this is 56 here. Anywhere that's red and purple would be very high gusts of wind. And given the fact that you can see in the corner here, this little caret, this little triangle, it's pointed northeast, so it's coming in strong in this direction. My suspicion is that some of the areas that have been battered over the last, 4, 5, 6 hours could get worse. How do you know that? Well, look at this. This is 6 in the morning. This is 5.5 hours from now. 5.5 hours from now, I don't know what you're looking at, Aldrich. I'm looking at this, 6 a.m. Right, so you have the potential for some very bright colors here in purple in the out Manio, Roanoke Island, Kill Devil Hills, looks like down toward Nag's Head. Those winds could be closing in on 50, 55, 60, maybe 65. And if it's just there for a little while, there's some orange and yellow areas here along the eastern shore too, so it might be locally higher there too. So if that's the message I want to pass on to you. I think the winds are going to get much stronger between now and the time we hit, say, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, when the sun is up and people are wondering what happened. Because if you're over here, if you live in inland Virginia and inland North Carolina, it's a nothing burger. Or even the peninsula, if you're in Newport News or maybe you're maybe Williamsburg, you go, oh, that was nothing. They overhyped this. They overhyped this. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Well, we didn't think this was going to be an inland situation. We knew this was going to be a coastal situation that would likely affect most importantly, the Outer Banks. So it's one of those things. You can't win for losing. What's the expect? Like if you're going to message this out, say, hey, we got a storm. It's close and it's pretty big. It's gotten bigger. 110 academically is a Cat 2, but it could be as strong as a Cat 3 if we just added 1 mile an hour more. That sometimes bothers me in the messaging because you got to face it. It's more than just the Saffir-Simpson scale. It's how it impacts a community, and those sometimes are not always communicated. Big difference between, as I'm thinking, Wilma and Andrew were very concise. They were very small storms, but then something like Erin and Floyd, big storms. They're very, very large. So if you're going to grade them all on the same scale, sometimes they don't always necessarily have the same impact on a local community. I'm looking at these winds. Do you think it gets better or worse at 8? 8 o'clock. This is not a trick question and there's no quiz. But if you're up with me, I noticed that now south side's like, man, it's 43. Oh, now we got a wind speed. Okay, maybe. If you have patio furniture, you got flags, what if it's your trash day? Ooh, trash day. You're like, that's crazy. Trash day, I don't want my trash in your yard, so I'm going to make sure that trash can is secure. Good idea. That's a brilliant idea. So make sure those are the steps. Someone was asking, how do I prepare? Maybe make sure that if your trash cans are loose, that they're not going to be going down the street where you're embarrassed and you got everything all skewed everywhere around town. Back to this, I want to see if there's some comments. Okay, keeping this real casual. Let's see here. Aaron Johnson. Hello, Aaron. Good to see you, my friend. I believe you've left some other comments, and yes, it is harder. Is it harder to forecast a hurricane or a snowstorm? Well, that's a good question. For me, I think a snowstorm has its own inherent challenges. And I could go into more detail why, because of the water ratio. So you're trying to figure out how many inches, and of course there's that point of time where you say at some point snow has to end. It's kind of like when you get rain showers. At some point the rain ends, and in this case the effects of the winds, they end too. But they both have a lot of challenges, and with the hurricanes there's a lot more at stake. Right? You could have some kids excited to make snow angels when it snows, like it did here on February 19th. That was 2 days. I arrived here 2 days after that event, and I have to say that I saw mounds of snow. I saw mounds of snow at the Walmart parking lot. And I said, boy, it must have snowed here, Hampton Roads, and it did. So we got a lot of snow, I know that. but it doesn't have the same impact. Sure, it's an inconvenience for people who have to get to work, but a hurricane can have a far greater reach, and it burns in your memory, like Isabel, 2003, for those of you old enough to remember it, or maybe even Hurricane Matthew, for those of you who might have been in Chesapeake for some historical flooding. All right, I'm going to keep moving. I'm also looking at your comments. I got a note from Amy Lynn. She's on here. Hi, Amy. Boy, we got a lot of insomniacs on here. I like that. I mean, I typically do the 11 o'clock news. I do the 4, the 5. Well, most of the time I'll do the 5 and 6, and then the 11 o'clock news. But for me to go to bed right when I get home is tough. Like, I'll watch TV just to unwind. Kind of like if you work, I don't know, 9 to 5, go to bed at 5:30. He's like, that's not happening. I gotta watch some mindless TV or something. So for me, I'll be done with the news at 11:30, and I'm usually up at this hour. So I don't mind doing it because I think it's important. How will Chesapeake be affected? Probably no differently, Amy, than did Norfolk, where we have some flooding, localized flooding, maybe from especially along the shorelines and some of the tidal waterways. So these are the spots we have to watch. Some of this, as you go through Chesapeake, I'm thinking of the Greenbrier Mall. There's all sorts of geese running around. I mean, a lot of the animals are going to be like, what's going on? Because the winds will be pretty busy, and we'll have to wait and see. But I'm just trying to illustrate from this image that the winds are going to be very strong going into 8 o'clock in the morning. And I know that a lot of people who are sound asleep right now will be trying to get to work or school and be there by 8 o'clock in the morning. It's going to be really hard if you're near or around maybe Knott's Island, maybe you're around Duck, maybe you're in Currituck County, maybe you're down toward Nags Head, or maybe even Manio or Wanchese. So some of these winds are going to catch your attention, I think, just as a function of this storm passing close by. It's not a direct hit. I don't want to suggest that it is. I'm just saying it's going to have that challenge of getting into work. Now, this is 7 o'clock tomorrow night, or later tonight. I keep thinking it's Wednesday. No, it's Thursday, Aldrich. I know. But 7 p.m. Thursday. 7 p.m. Thursday. Are you sure that about? Yeah, this is almost, into the evening where we're getting closer to high tide at Sewell's Point, where the winds are still gusting over 40 around the Outer Banks and may have slowed down just a wee bit, but they're not going to be calm. So again, by this point, where's the wind? The wind is coming in this direction. I'm looking at that white caret there. That's a northeasterly wind. And so it's going to be pushing water, much like when you blow on your coffee. I use this example tonight. If you ever had a hot cup of coffee and you, as I clear out my telestrator, you have a hot cup of coffee and you blow on it, and all that coffee pushes onto the other side of the cup. So Mother Nature, in the name of Erin, will be pushing some of that water in places that it's suddenly rising and you didn't expect it. Maybe some do. Maybe you've been down this road before, and this happens with nor'easters all the time. I had somebody tell me here in Hampton Roads, they said, sometimes it's the nor'easters that are worse than the hurricanes. Have you heard that expression? Some people believe that 100% in this area. Maybe it is the nor'easters that have that effect, depending on how long they stick around and how long maybe power is out. So it's not the end of the world. For me, it's like a dress rehearsal. Maybe there'll be a point where we do get an eye wall landfall, but that's not this time. This is not going to happen in that way, and I don't want to suggest that it is. We will get through this, but there are going to be people with question marks like, maybe you're visiting us from out of town. Maybe you're never been through a type of hurricane situation. This is a great chance to ask your neighbors about evacuation routes, emergency kits. Where do you go when there's a loss of power? Are there alternative ways to get to X, Y, or Z destinations? These are great questions to ask the people who have experience here, and they are oftentimes, many times, they are actually your neighbors. It's easy, right? Talk to some people who've been in your neighborhood in Norfolk, in Virginia Beach, in Newport News. Say, hey, I've only been here X number of days or weeks. What would you recommend? What do you do when storms? I had somebody say they'll only leave if the locals are leaving. Well, if there's an emergency evacuation, which there has been for parts of Corolla, as well as Ocracoke and Hatteras, that I would definitely leave. But some people tend to think they've been through, I've been through all those storms. I'm like, but you haven't been in this storm. Because sometimes it's after the storm, when power is lost, flooding is occurring, that people can't get attended to quickly. It's sometimes where somebody has to come rescue you. That's no good. Right? We turned our conscious decision to go into standing water sometimes, but some first responder has to come get you, and that's kind of selfish. I mean, you're putting them in danger because you were in a hurry. So I don't know if people think like that, but it really is a thought that it involves more than just you. And because your family cares about you, maybe everybody should just look after each other. That's my only, what I'm maintaining here on a Thursday morning about 12:38 a.m. Let's get you through the wind gust forecast. This takes us through noon on Friday. Tell me when you think the winds are slow. They're still a little breezy by 5 o'clock Friday and still in the Outer Banks. It looks like it gets better by 11 o'clock on Friday night. Now this map obviously is still buffering or sinking itself through, so we'll go ahead and skip this one. But I will say that the winds that we were seeing, it's probably in the mindset it's getting new data, but we'll be watching the winds especially through the next 24 hours. What about wave heights? Wave heights that are forecasted are going to be generally in that range that you see off the coast. Could be anywhere from 10 to 20 down toward Ocracoke and Hatteras, but sometimes these models will underestimate what actually plays out, and you can see there are some 10s and 12s and 13s out to the far east of us out in the middle of the Atlantic. So just to recap, if you're not sure what the flooding could look like, we are going to continue to see a rise in water, most likely pick up during the Thursday afternoon and evening with high tide. So for some it might start off like this, and then for others it might look like this later in the day. So hopefully you have a plan, you know where to go. If you've lived here your whole life, you say, I've been through coastal flooding events so many times I can't count. So this is probably no big deal. But at least the Hurricane Center, and with the help of the National Weather Service, have been talking about 10 to 20 foot in the surf zone, which is why the surfers are crazy excited, but this will last until Friday night. Not everybody will have it. It was got closer to maybe 8 to 12 here in the Virginia Beach area in terms of the waves and the surf zone at that time at that particular place. All right, so I'm just looking at the comments. I'm going to be coming back to, let's see, if this is the radar, this is the satellite image, excuse me. So we're looking at your comments. Let's see here. Sharon has a question. And again, I can only advise you one way or the other to be always err on the side of safety, not only for yourself, but if somebody has to come rescue you on behalf of our first responders, please take it easy. Don't do something that would be daring just to say, hey, I want a selfie in the middle of the storm and the big crashing waves. Just do what you feel like is sensible. But she wants to know, should my friend go to Sandbridge tomorrow? I don't necessarily think it's a wise move. I've been to Sandbridge with my wife and daughters, and I can tell you that when you're out there, it's pretty narrow. You know, the road is there's not a lot of room for traffic, and so you're going to find people that are maybe they're just gawking at the big waves, but it's probably best to just hunker down and wait and just see in the morning. You can ask your neighbors, hey, does it look good in Sandbridge today, or would you say there's a better day to come? I would suspect probably Friday and Saturday will be much better days and Sandbridge. So hopefully that's the best answer I can give at this particular moment. Let's see. Now, I don't know if she's pulling my leg or if she's sincere. You know, when you read an email or a comment on a screen, I can't get the tonality, but she is saying this is her first hurricane. She's from Ohio. So, Ms. Rousey, good to have you. I'll take you at face value. I'm going to believe that this is absolutely your first, and if it is, it's really just dress rehearsal because we're not feeling the true effects of Erin, but it is certainly a tropical storm force winds that many of us will experience before the day is through. By the way, did I tell you I'm on television? At the top of the hour, I'm going to keep the radar going. I want this to be a stream that we can keep this going for a little bit more than an hour, maybe 2 or more, but I'm going to have to go back to the TV side and do some business and then come back. So this is one of those things that if you're an insomniac and you just want to see what's going on with our friend Erin, this is going to be one of the storms that's going to continue to kind of pivot away. But the effects of this, obviously with its only being about 215 miles away from Hatteras, that's why a lot of us are a little concerned. It's maybe too close for comfort. Somebody said too close for comfort. That's probably a good way to describe it. But you can clearly see this is spinning, and the effects of it is now washing onto shore at this time. So the latest hurricane track takes this, and this is again the 11 o'clock hour. I believe we'll be getting another update probably closer to 2 a.m. But this is the 11 a.m. update. You can see that's located here. So this is the pressure at 942 millibars. It did drop 20 millibars on Wednesday. I do know that, and I do know it dropped from about 961 at 11 a.m. Tuesday to about 941 at 11 a.m. Wednesday. So we did get a drop in pressure, and that simply means it got stronger. And in many ways, it got larger. And so while it is moving north at 16, it's when it moves northeast, that's going to be a sign that it's beginning to turn. But we have winds right now 110, which is 1 mile per hour shy of a 3. And that's, come on, Cat 3. Then everybody like, oh, now I'm going to leave. Somebody said that on the news tonight. He said, I'll only leave it to Cat 3. You got gusts that are approaching Cat 4. So, we spend way too much, put way too much stock in the Saffir-Simpson scale. But I digress. We got other things to look at. Now this is Erin, based on the modeling. Notice the time, 1:30 in the morning. That's about a little more than about an hour from now or so, a little less. But this has, what's happening is the bands are coming in here like so, because the winds are rotating counterclockwise around the low, and that's the eye there. But you're seeing a lot more. It's prolonged. It's a cumulative effect that's taking effect on the eastern shore, on the Outer Banks. May very well eventually get up to the eastern shore as I'll put this in motion, but this goes in at 4:30 in the morning. Where's the rain? Mainly over the Outer Banks. How about 7 or 8 or 9 in the morning? Now it's beginning to pull away, but it's taken a good part of the afternoon to do so. And so that's why it's not like one and done over. This was kind of like a 2-day event, where today was kind of the build-up, and overnight tonight the winds kick in, but the last step of this is likely to be, lastly going to be in the winds, the flooding, the coastal flooding. The storm surge will continue to rise, and we just have to be watchful. If you're living in a low-lying area, you got to find a way to get above ground so that you're not impacted as adversely as some might suspect we would be. Again, the Hurricane Center as well as the National Weather Service have been very clear and out front. Now, speaking of the Hurricane Center, there are a couple of other locations in the Atlantic where new names could form. This is a good moment where this red X means that this could become Ferdinand. That's the F storm, Ferdinand, F-E-R. If I could spell with a telestrator, it's not easy. But Ferdinand has now a 90% chance that this is Ferdinand. I don't suspect Ferdinand will get well organized because it's moving kind of like in the ocean backwash of Erin. So it may not be as warm in the waters of the Atlantic at that point, but time will tell. I don't want to say it's too early, but my suspicion is, based on the modeling I've been seeing, there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that Ferdinand will grow to the intensity that Erin did. Plus, over here you have potentially another storm that could be Gabrielle, and that's still yet to be determined on where or if she actually gets a name. So the Hurricane Center is just doing their job. They're trying to locate or identify areas of interest that might be future development, and the formation potential is either low, medium, or high, and you can clearly see the red areas might be actually high. Now Ferdinand is the next, Gabrielle, and then it would be followed up by Umberto, Imelda, and Jerry. Jerry is the one I'm waiting for because that's the name of my father, and of course if you're a weather guy or a weather gal and your parents are suddenly hurricanes, you say, of course. You know, it's one of those things that the names are, some people love having names like this. Some people like, I could just call it this, that, or the other. But they've been doing it for such a long time now, since the early 1950s, I believe is how long they've been doing the names. And some people like to see their name up in lights. They get to get recognized. We got through just short of Tony last year, but these names take you right all the way up to Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy, if anyone is on this call, and then maybe you have the name there. But we do have a lot of the hurricane season still to play out. Typically it's September 10th. That's the timeline that peaks usually at this point. And these are the spots during that time, but say anywhere from late August right through September, where we usually see a spike in tropical activity. So that's where things are at the moment. I'm going to come back and see if I can answer some questions. I'm almost to the top of the hour, so forgive me. I'm going to kind of reset my maps behind me because I wanted to look at a closer view of Erin, some of the wind gusts that we're going to be getting at the top of the hour. I will have that coming up. But we're still watching this storm very closely because, again, if you're just joining us, it's the high tide times that we're watching that might have a bigger implication. Let's see if I can pull this back up. This, I believe, is... yep, let me pull this back on here. So just wanting to make sure everybody has the information that they need before they go to bed. Maybe you're a light sleeper. Maybe you work the third shift. Maybe this is something you're usually up this late and this is just par for the course. But with this type of system, we were talking about the fact that winds at 110. It's located about 215 miles away from Hatteras, and it's going to do kind of a turn over time. This is what I wanted you to see. Now this, again, these will update every hour, if not sooner, usually the top of the hour. But we now have seen, well, this was a 51, I believe it's 54 now. So you're going to find these winds starting to come on shore. These are wind gusts. These are not sustained, but some of the coloring you can see are in other parts of the Outer Banks. Clearly you can see Hatteras is now 37. I believe that's a little stronger. Rodanthe's at 34. And it looks like we're still in the mid-20s for Currituck and Kitty Hawk. So 26 Currituck, 23 Currituck, 26 Kitty Hawk, and 31 in Manio. So if you're in these areas, let me know. I would love to have you share your thoughts and let me know what you're seeing. Let's see. I got a note from Courtney, although I don't know if I have all the comment or the entire note. So bear with me, Courtney. Some of these, sometimes it will cut off after so many characters, like when you're on X or on Twitter. But she's, believe, Courtney is saying, I get that gusts are a higher wind speed, but what is the sustained wind forecast? I suspect the winds sustained are going to be more like 20 to 35. So 20 to 35 sustained during the course of your Thursday, with gusts closer to 40 to 45 plus for Norfolk, for Portsmouth, for Newport News, but in even lesser amounts further inland, like Franklin or further west. So that 20 to 35, it's a good question, which is of course good to know. The gust could reach a little higher. Usually you get a burst of wind that might be 3-5 seconds, and then it rattles the window panes. That's what we could have with these things increasing in the night, and that's what can keep people up, right? You start getting wind gusts in that range, and they can ramp up to 60 plus. Well, that's going to possibly take some trees down, right? They could also affect power, because when trees fall, they can land on power lines, and suddenly I'm out of power. I really wish I'd listened to that weather guy and charged my phone. That's probably a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea anytime. And some people say, well, I could do it in my car, my truck. If you have an adapter, sure. But some people don't always think that through, and sometimes that's the way it goes. I got a note from Sharon, I believe she has a note here. She just wants to gawk at the waves. You know, sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're, maybe there are a lot of people that came down here for maybe a week's vacation, and then next week they go back to school. Maybe that's back to school in Ohio or Kentucky or another state. And if you're visiting us from out of town, welcome. We're very happy that you're here. Sorry that the weather wasn't perfect, but sometimes these can make for memories and a good life's experience. It's just an opportunity to take in what Mother Nature sometimes dishes out, which is sometimes very unpleasant weather, no doubt. Let's see, who else have I got? We're getting some good comments for something that I'm surprised to see people are still up at this town. Let's see here. I want to know what Tina has to say. Tina, are you here? Tina says hello. She says, how's my little town? Everybody, I want to recognize Tina. These are her words. How's my little town of Hertford, North Carolina, just south of Elizabeth City, North Carolina, going to fare? I think they're going to fare okay. It's one of those things when you deal with a northerly wind, it may not even have as much of an impact in like an Elizabeth City. But for something like Ghent, and I'm drawing that from my own experience, I can't walk a block and a half to the 7-Eleven here without seeing a lot of standing water when it rains about a half inch to 2 inches. 2 inches would do it, but 1 inch will do it, and you get that type of situation. So in the Hertford area, which I haven't been to, but I have been to Elizabeth City, you will find that there will be strong gusty winds, and the rain will be not the big story. The coastal flooding and those inlands for the sounds and the rivers, they might have some stress or strain, but we're going to have to wait and see, right? Because sometimes if these storms jog a little bit, and it did, it went from what was 80 miles. It started to jog on the far western side of the hurricane cone just in the last 24 hours. So the devil's in the details. It's being in the weeds as far as that is concerned, and those winds are just getting started. So if you're joining us just now, almost to 1 o'clock, I got to get downstairs. I'll come back. I'll keep the conversation going because I don't want you to think that this live stream is over. It's not. I just want to be able to give you the information. We'll get some new information, new temperatures, everything at 1 o'clock. I got to get downstairs, get on television, do a quick little cut in there, and then we'll come back and we'll continue this conversation. So please keep the notes coming. I'm going to probably just leave it on this screen for two reasons. One, if someone's just joining us and they're like, what's going on? I wanted you to be able to see the image of Erin, and also be able to see what we're expecting in terms of threats, which would be the flooding, the gusty winds, and maybe a few downpours. But really, this is going to go on from basically tonight through Friday morning before we see some dramatic improvements. But it really is a coastal event, which is why I was not isolating or picking on Franklin or Wakefield or maybe even Emporia, but because you're so far west from the water, likely that you're not going to have nearly the problems, if any problems there. It's really going to be a coastal situation. So I got a few minutes left before it's about 12:51. I'm going to be hopefully cutting in around 1 o'clock. So I got a minute or two here. If you have another thought, a question, I see here. Let's see here. Maria's got a good suggestion. She says, y'all can gawk at the waves by looking at the piers live cams. I couldn't agree more. Sometimes people want to feel the roar of those waves, but I get you. I'm with you, Maria. I want people to be safe. I mean, no matter where you fall in that spectrum, what your threshold for risk and excitement, and what somebody says that I wouldn't do that, or somebody might have a greater risk tolerance. You just got to be able to make sure that you're playing it safe. It's just best to wait for these things to pass, which this storm will pass. I mean, it's not going to be here past really Thursday night. It's going to finally move away, but as the storm moves away, the winds are still going to be rather gusty. So thank you, Maria Torres, for sharing us that note. Let's see here. Ooh, Bree West. Hello, Bree. How many insomniacs do we have besides me? I mean, I'm a weather nerd, but like I said, I'm usually up at this hour. Anyway, it's closing up on 1 o'clock. It's about 12:52. It's back to school in Chewan County next week. Beautiful Edenton. You're going back to school, and you got to be excited. But I'm sure the kids may have just wanted to have one more good week or weekend where you didn't have, or the build up to, wanted to be at the beach without worrying about big waves and all the rest. But sometimes, like I said, just the messenger. But that's good to know that you're back in school, and I hope you have a great school year. Before you know it, we're going to get some very cool air. I'll get that when I come back after my cut-in, because I am expecting we've now moved, once we get rid of this thing, once we get rid of this storm, we're going to be moving into some cooler air that's crisp and fall-like. I mean, cool weather in August is not very much well heard of, but that's where we're headed. Some areas of Minnesota may not even get out of the 60s for highs with full sunshine. That's pretty rare for August. And I just been having these great conversations with our own Tony Nargi. He's one of our newest weather additions, newest weather hires, actually. And so his knowledge is having been in Duluth, Minnesota for the last 2 years, as he's a Penn State grad and originally from Boston. So one of the things about some places like Minnesota, it's that cool Canadian air. It will be here in just a few short days. So hang in there if you're not a fan of the humidity. Other comments, I got Bree, I got Courtney, I got Sharon, Carrie rather, and Joshua. Let's see here. I got other notes. How about Richmond? Tyler wanted to know about Richmond. Yeah, we kind of focus a little bit more with our call letters, WTKR for Hampton Roads in Northeast North Carolina, but really Richmond is even further away from Franklin, so I don't think this is a big deal for Richmond, other than a few pockets of gusts of wind. I think you'll be fine. I got who had Tina Miller Matthews left her note, and let's see here, Robin White wanting to know about the ocean front. What about the ocean front? What should we expect? I'm expecting wind speeds for tomorrow, which is really Thursday, once the sun's up, generally 20 to 35, gusting around 40, 45 plus. So you've got a persistent wind that's going to last for hours. Then you're going to throw in some extra storm surge and some beach erosion. Some extensive beach erosion is probably going on right now in many parts of the Outer Banks, simply because of the placement of where this storm is right now. So this is like ongoing. Set the clock to it. It's almost 1 o'clock. This will still be doing this at 8 in the morning. I mean, you got another 7 hours of it. I mean, that's why I say it's going to chip away at some of the beach that we love and enjoy, the sand. And so that's the sad part of it all, which again doesn't affect anybody in Richmond, but it is what it is. All right, so we're going back to our friends here with Erin. What to expect. Very thankful for, again, my sponsor, Marco's Pizza. We're giving away free pizza coming up at the evening live stream tomorrow night. So if you would like to win, it's very easy. That's what you can do while I'm gone. You can fill out and just go to WTKR.com/Marcos, because they want to give you, you know how hard it is to give away free pizza? These 5 locations are where you can redeem the free pizza, because they're giving away a certificate tomorrow, plus they'll give away about 10 extra free pies, free one-topping pizzas. But the pizza certificate is a big crowd pleaser because it works like a punch card. We could do August, we could do September, and so on. So you'll be able to get one of these if you win. And they do randomize the name selection, so I don't know those names until later today. So we'll get them in the computer, and I'll announce the winners later on Thursday evening. Usually do the streams on Monday through Thursday from 7:40 to 8. I rarely stop at 8. I'll usually go to 8:15 or later, but it's just one of these things we've gotten into a rhythm where people love. Marcos Loves Weather. They wouldn't have sponsored it if they weren't a big fan of what content we're producing. So again, if you're just joining us, my name is David Aldrich, Chief Meteorologist of WTKR News 3 Television. We'll come back. This is not the end of the live stream. This is a rare or special edition because of Erin, and because some of us tend to be a little bit of an insomniac when the winds are howling. And I'm not suggesting the winds are howling everywhere. Most places it's still pretty calm. But the Outer Banks we saw a moment ago, the winds are picking up, and they will be going up through the next, say, 7 hours, right between now and 8 o'clock is my suspicion. So stay with us. I'll have more coming up, but I'm going to mute my microphone and go downstairs. And if you're watching TV, you go, hey, wait a minute, I just saw him on the live stream. Yeah, I'm kind of doing double duty, running up and down because I love you. That's why I'm doing it. I'm learning more about the area by going to these spotlight towns I've been doing. I don't know if you're aware, but I've been doing these fun things. I go to these towns and I'll do like 80 photographs. So if you haven't been, if your town is not listed here, it's just because I haven't had time to get to it yet. But I've done Poquoson, Smithfield, I did Moyock and Edenton, and I've done Franklin, Exmoor, Matthews, and Manio, and Elizabeth City. And Portsmouth, just did Portsmouth a week ago Sunday. So I enjoy doing it because I get to learn the area, and so that when a big storm hits, and this one's not, but when the big storm hits, it's going to help me to know the area. It's going to help me know what Edenton looks like or what Elizabeth City looks like, the harbor of hospitality. I'll have that knowledge as I go forward. So that's why I'm excited about doing these spotlights, because they help me and really to recognize you, because you guys got really cool things. As I've learned, each town has a unique characteristic, a unique flavor in food and other types of things. So I just love doing these neighborhood spotlights. All right, talked on long enough. About 1 o'clock, I got to get downstairs. I'm being tagged to go downstairs. So let me just say I'm not done. We're still on the live stream, but I wanted you to have the radar, and I wanted to be able to give you some information. So I'll be back in probably about 4 or 5 minutes, if that, but it depends on how quickly I can cut into programming and get back up the stairs. But thank you for your patience, and I hope you guys sleep well. So I'll maybe talk to a whole new audience when I come back in a few short minutes. Thanks for sticking with me. Okay, I'm back. Took a little while, but that was easy peasy, right? Like that was easy, but we just had to do a little updating on the television side, and we kind of just promoted people to come here or to our webpage, WTKR.com. We have a live blog that also has more details and more of a concise manner, but if you want to interact with me and maybe some of your neighbors who are watching, this is a platform. We're just trying something different. This is an experiment. We started doing this, I guess it was back on May 19th, so a couple of months ago. We've given a lot of free Barco's pizza, hundreds of it, in fact, since that started. But we love having the fact that it's kind of like a weather pizza party, right? We want to make sure people are safe, and this is an event that's probably the biggest event that I have seen since my short time being here, which has now been about just under 6 months. If you have a comment, let me know. Let's see here. Christina wants to, again, we were asked a question about Richmond. Is North Carolina, Wilmington in the clear? I don't know if they're in the clear because I know that some areas down toward Cape Lookout, they're going to feel some effects. It's just not like as bad as what one might have had if you had a direct hit. And this is not a direct hit, not for us, not for Wilmington and the beautiful Wrightsville Beach, because I lived there for 4 years too, shortly after my days at Chapel Hill. So both the Chapel Hill and NC State grad, I joke that I can't root for Duke. It's not in the code. I can't root for Duke. It's a 4-letter word. I've heard that too, but I just, anyway, I get ahead of myself. We've been talking about the ocean overwash. This is a big deal for Highway 12. The Highway 12 has probably already had some big impacts already, and it's now 108. But I want to go see if I can move forward a little bit more in time. We're talking about tidal flooding. The radar doesn't light up here, right? And you often know that when there's tropical rains that come in, the raindrops are not going to, you're not going to get a lot of bright banding per se necessarily. You're going to get some radar echoes, but sometimes it can be raining a lot harder than the radar would suggest. It's just sometimes the nature of tropical features. But this storm, which we're going to get an update from the Hurricane Center at the top of the hour. And when I say top of the hour, I mean like 2 a.m. Right now it's 1:06. On my computer clock, 1:08 on my other clock, I think is running fast. But this storm is obviously going to impact everybody essentially from southeastern sections of North Carolina, maybe not all of Wilmington, because Myrtle Beach is not colored in the warning, but it goes all the way up to the Jersey shore, where they're also dealing with the concern of high winds. Now, the wind gusts have suddenly populated, right? We won't get a number. And somebody was asking me about a Hosky. We're not getting a number in Hosky because the winds are not a factor here. There are no gusts. There are no gusts at this hour, this being 1 a.m. We're right now in the 1 a.m. time frame. So we're beginning to see one in Norfolk. It's picked up here at 28. It's 30 in Manio and 28 in Kitty Hawk. So if you were curious about how strong are the winds right now, well, maybe it's nothing to write home about, but it's building to a fever pitch. It's going to build to a crescendo, I think, as we head forward in time. But as far as the buoys, they're still in the 49 range for some of them, but now we're up to 39 in Hatteras and 28 in Kitty Hawk. So these are going to vary. These are going to fluctuate. Sustained winds will be picking up too, as we'll potentially talk about them momentarily. Satellite radar showing, again, not much in terms of rainfall at the moment, and nor do we expect a whole lot maybe in the short term, but it could get a little more enhanced once the northerly winds kick in. It's more northeasterly now, and it's beginning to rain in places like Rodanthe, Hatteras, Ocracoke perhaps has had a few drops of rain, and areas around, we'll say Manio, Wanchese, Roanoke Islands had some rain roll through over the last hour or two. So just to kind of recap, I like to show this because, again, this kind of debunks the idea when someone says, well, I see the cone, it's going to stay out. But when you've got hurricane force winds, 105, that was only 80 yesterday. 80 yesterday, meaning like Tuesday. It was 80 miles out from the center was the hurricane force winds, and now tropical storm force winds are 265. So because this is so large, it's about over 500 miles wide, it's a big storm, then that's why there was all of this hubbubaloo to get people, hey, maybe you should get off the water, maybe you should get off the surfboard, maybe we get you pulled in and get this thing out of here, because clearly it has some implications, and those would include coastal flood warnings that really don't start till closer to sunrise this morning. So if it's 1 to 3 feet, I know how people tend to interpret information. Let's suggest, I think Aaron asked me a question in the last hour. He said, what's harder, a hurricane or a snowstorm? Well, I do know when you talk about snow amounts and you go, you're going to get 1 to 3 inches of snow, what did you hear? I had a guy one time, he called the station, I was in Knoxville, and he was angry. He said, He said, he said, I got a weather complaint. I said, lay it on me. He said, you said we were going to get 2 to 4 inches of snow. I said, yeah. He said, I only got 3. I was like, 2 to 4, 3, that's in the middle. I thought, that's a problem? He said, I didn't get the 4. You said, he heard the highest number and put that in his pocket, right? It's the same thing if you go to a car dealer, I'm going to give you 2 to 4,000 for your trade-in. What did you hear? 4,000? What if he only gives you 2? He did say 2 to 4,000. You heard 4, you put the big number in your pocket. Same thing here. Same thing here. So if this is 1 to 3 feet, some of you are like, 3 feet? I didn't get 3 feet, but you could get 3 feet. Maybe you get 2 feet. Maybe you get 1. There's a level of uncertainty, right? And I can tell you this, I'm 6'1" if I don't slouch, but 3 feet would be probably close to my waist. And for you, maybe you could find that's a lot of water, and it's really going to affect the coastal areas. I know all of these counties and cities, the 7 cities seem all lit up, but really it's the tidal waterways and really the coastal area shorelines that are going to have that issue particularly. And it's all going to line up most often with the high tide. And high tide for Sewell's Point, which is a great example for maybe the Norfolk and Virginia Beach area, we're looking at 5.8, and that occurs closer to 9 p.m. So it'll be ramping up high tide between 7, 8, and 9. And that's why we want you to be prepared in that regard. Now, we also talked about Duck, North Carolina. We could cherry pick this area. This is going to be a major concern. And this is going to be between Thursday 7, maybe 6 or 7 as it begins to ramp up here and reaches its high point around 7 feet. So I'm just trying to highlight to you that even though you look out the window, and if you're watching from Richmond or Wilmington, North Carolina, I love those cities, I love those areas, but we're focused in a great extent here with our WTKR television audience, which covers Hampton Roads and Northeast North Carolina. So that's why I'm highlighting Duck and Sewell's Point. So one of the things you'll notice is the Sound and Rivers area could have 1 to 3 feet. Some of you only heard the word 3, some of you heard 4, but 2 to 4 feet, maybe it's only 3. Again, it's a forecast, it's an expectation, it's not absolute. It's not an absolute situation, but we are anticipating the storm surge to be up and down, right? All these green areas along the water and the coastal areas, that's going to be impacted the most as we head forward in time. I'm looking at the comments. I want to say hi to you. Thank you for staying up late with me. I got some other notes here that came in maybe in the last hour. We've had Carrie Perry. I love that name. I guess we got it right. I mean, is that? I guess yeah. She says she says Carrie Perry, AJ Perry. So maybe she's trying to tag AJ to watch. But good morning to you. I don't normally say good morning. I do the 11 o'clock news. I've even been able to say good morning before our own Miles Henderson, who will be here later this morning to take over where we left off in this conversation. But looking at some of the other notes, Kyle, is this Kyle on here? Kyle says. He says, I am. I guess maybe he's here. But Kyle Raymond McCarthy, great to have you here. I know it's almost 1:15 or so, pretty close to that, watching this as we go forward in time. I'm looking at the pages and pages of notes. Some came in about, Sean's on here. Oh, that was a bad situation. Let me bring up Sean here. Isabel was bad. She said we lost power for 2 weeks. That would be a tough end result. I did interview Chief Meteorologist Dave Parker about 10 or 12 days ago because we're putting together a story, and Isabel was one of the topics. And he indicated he had lost power in Virginia Beach for 10 days. So 10 days, 2 weeks, it kind of falls in line with what was a very unpleasant storm. Like, Isabel, please go away and don't come back. It was one of those situations a lot of people did not look favorably at all at Isabel. Now, looking at the storm surge, we talked about how this is going to be changing. Obviously, the situation may not be bad everywhere now, but it could get worse. High tide will be about 9 to 12 feet for Thursday, 6 to 9 on Friday, 4 to 5 in some other areas later on this week. We talked about the chance of winds being pretty high back here. That's the hurricane force winds that stay well off the coast, which is corresponding with the cone. But because this brushes by the Outer Banks, the wind forecast, the radii of this storm goes all the way into Hatteras and into areas around the Outer Banks that they'll feel the worst of this storm, just again depending on track and positioning. We're still looking at the wind forecast for the wind forecast for tropical storms, rather, does put most of the Hampton Roads area into the crosshairs. Maybe lesser amounts for Virginia Beach and Portsmouth, but the coloring keeps changing as this begins to shift. Hatteras is colored green because the probability of getting 39 plus, they're already beginning to see that now. So I think that might be past the point. All right, so we're looking at this. Let's see. I got a note from Brianna. This is good conversation here. She says, I'm in Norfolk, and I was in Katrina. I'm concerned on how to prepare or how heavy to prepare. If you were in Katrina, hats off to you because you've probably been through one of the worst storms you may ever go through. I mean, we have more information when I interviewed Dr. Michael Brennan, the director of the National Hurricane Center, on Monday on this live stream. I asked him, I said, we're coming up on that 20th anniversary, and he indicated, he says, there's a lot of technology we didn't have then that we have now, like inundation maps, where we can see graphically where things are likely to flood and where they're likely to grow and become a bigger problem. And as I said, Katrina, as you know, really didn't elevate it until a catastrophic situation until after the levees broke. And it was the Superdome, and there are a lot of people who look at those documentaries, maybe didn't live through it, was maybe too young to witness it, but as you know, it was rough. I had, for several years, I would say probably close to 6 years, I lived 2 doors down from a couple who are Katrina refugees. They had left New Orleans and came to Tennessee to live because they had to. They had lost their property, and it was a place for them to come. So they were good friends, but that's I get it. Now, preparing here, this is more like a dress rehearsal. Sometimes at the beginning of hurricane, or rather beginning of severe weather season, the National Weather Service will announce a tornado drill, where they'll announce the time and they'll let the NOAA weather radio go off, and the school kids will get all prepared, like, what are you going to do if there's a tornado drill or a tornado warning? So this is probably the closest thing to a drill or dress rehearsal to a direct hit. It's not going to hit us directly. I just would say remind your opportunities. You could go to like a ready.gov website where they could give you tips on how to prepare, how to have an emergency kit. There's all sorts of resources. And you can also go to our webpage, WTKR.com. We have a live blog highlighting some of the things that you need to know or would want to know going into the next 24 hours or so. But if you're just joining us, it is now 1:18. I showed this earlier, but I wanted to highlight the winds and why they're a factor. It's a factor in some areas. Oops, it disappeared on me. Bear with me, we'll get this reset. But as I come back on camera, one of the things I could do is this, and we'll go ahead and clear the telestrator. The 63 is corresponding with 6 in the morning. And if I'm not mistaken, that's like less than 5 hours from now. So the winds, no matter how strong they are right now, kick it up a notch, right? You're going to see these winds likely move up and in intensity during the next 5 hours, as this would suggest. 6 a.m., 38 south side, but we're not done there. It's going to be closer to 45, I think, before the morning is through, in around Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, as well as Suffolk. Those are the spots I'm going to watch all the same. Now, come back on here. We'll go full screen here. Actually, 60 is good. So 8 a.m., we're up to 60. Now there's the 43. So the 43 could very well mean that the top wind gust that we get, potentially in Norfolk and south side, would come maybe around, say, 8 or 9 a.m. That's the way this would suggest. Now, 44, pretty close. That's still 1 o'clock. So you still got some strong winds, but the 60s are disappearing here. So it really could depend on the timing of where you need to be during the day of Thursday. If you got family, maybe you got kids in college, community college, wherever you're going, you're going to find these winds are pretty strong, and they could potentially. They could affect power. Maybe the power flickers. Maybe it doesn't go off at all, and all is good. But at least you're aware this is mainly a coastal event, and it will eventually get better over time. Let me keep moving because I want to show you some other graphics I did not show last hour, which was primarily temperatures and some other goodies. But high surf, we talked about that. That's also an element that's in play until Friday night. High surf advisory. Here's Erin again. We've looked at that, and we're now at 1:20 in the morning, roughly 1:20, getting close to it on a Thursday morning. The Hurricane Erin cone, we talked about Erin here. This has all happened before I left and went off to do a quick television cut-in, but the timeline is a big story. Now, you remember this? This is what I wanted to tell you. We could take a breather on Erin. I'll get back to her in a moment. But if you remember how hot and humid it was in July, we're about to go the other direction into late August, early September. Remember, Labor Day this year is September 1st. I was really kind of surprised. It usually doesn't happen the first day of September, but it comes early this year. But these were the 90s. We had 12 of them in July, but every day in the upper 80s was so humid, it felt like 100 or 102. And usually 105 is where they kick in the heat index, or they kick in the heat advisories. But we didn't have that every day, but this was one of the days we had it. And the hot weather was been replaced with what we had on Wednesday. Yesterday's high, I say Wednesday's high, was only 83. And when you look at this, we've had only 2 measly days at 90, when we typically see about 9. So we've had a big turn of events, as many of you know, the start of the month, and now it's going to get even cooler. How do you know that? Look at this is the Climate Prediction Center, right? This is another division of NOAA. And so having this kind of intel is great, because if it's going to be exceptionally cool, you're not going to usually see 3 layers of blue in the middle of August. It's pretty unusual, but it's coming down from Canada. So how is that going to come in with Russia? Because it got to get rid of Erin. You knew there'd be a connection, because all weather is interconnected some way or another. So you get rid of Erin and you open the door for the cool, crisp, autumnal-like, high school football-like weather going into September 2nd, 3rd, right? That's past Labor Day. But I just wanted to give you some comfort, or maybe some solace, or at least some comfort that it will get better once we get rid of Erin, and the payoff may be a prolonged period of below normal temperatures. And when it's unusually cool, you're not going to make up for lost time. We've only had 2 90-degree days for the entire month, and we averaged 9. We're just not going to make up for lost time. I don't see it happening. All right, so that's not the ocean front. That's the wrong header. But the rainfall amounts that we've had in Norfolk is about 1.59, and we average about 5.88 for the season. Now, here are the numbers, right? Here is at 1 o'clock. I wanted to give you up speed. Temperatures are running in the upper 70s. It's very humid right now. When you have an approaching tropical storm or hurricane, you can anticipate a lot of humidity. That's how some of these storms live, breathe, and thrive, is in the humidity. Right now we have 78 in Suffolk, it's 79 in Norfolk, and 79 in Moyock. Thankful that we're not necessarily going to be in that pattern for long, but that's where we are now. Now, Erin is now approaching. We're going to get another update at the top of the hour. It's currently 121-ish, almost 122. Coastal flooding and dangerous surf are top of mind. Now, if we get some rain, it's going to be driven by the wind, and the storm chances will continue to rise to about 60% for Virginia Beach and Hampton Roads, and really through Norfolk and Chesapeake during the course of your Thursday afternoon. But cooler, less humid air will be holding or waiting in the wings as Erin slides by. Hopefully that also makes sense. Now, I like to show this because we have so much of a military presence. If you have family that are in other parts of the country, maybe you're in the military and you're homesick and you're kind of curious what's going on. Clearly it's pretty dry out west. California looks good. A few showers back toward Arizona. Looks like a little bit of wet weather in parts of Montana, where they had severe weather earlier Wednesday night. But if you can see here, there's only one big dancing storm right now, and that would be Erin. But eventually she will have some movement to the northeast. Right now that's not the case. We're still dealing with, and I see a few lightning bolts there showing up on the top side of this. But as this system continues to spin in some rain, you could get, I would estimate, between 1 and 2 inches of rain in some of these bands that come through parts of Cape Hatteras and into Kill Devil Hills. So that's where things are at the moment. Let me just kind of set this back up. This covers everybody, or at least try to get everybody. I got Chincoteague in there as well, but I wanted you to be able to see this picture as we plan on looking at the radar for a little bit longer. Let me check in with you if you have a comment. I want to do my best to bring you up on screen. I'll go back on page. There's like 3 pages of comments that have come in here, which is good, but it also reveals to me that somebody stays up late on a Wednesday night. I got a note from William. I think he's either congratulating me or say this guy doesn't know anything. Well, I'm not the finished product. I'm still got a lot of work to be done. I'm learning the area, but I do appreciate William. Hopefully, when it comes time that we do get a storm, I'll be that much better, stronger, and more knowledgeable, and we'll do our best to get you informed when things do change. I got an Audrey note. It is now 1:23. She says, sorry, Hurricane Erin. I don't know if she's sorry that Erin's there, or maybe she's not going to participate in it. Maybe she's written it off. I don't know. Let's see. Sabrina Ooh, Sabrina has a comment. She wants to say, she said, I'm ready for some wind. Okay. She says, the sounds will make me sleep like a baby. Ooh, so there, that's an interesting topic. I think some of us sleep very soundly. Some of us like a cement mixer, like you just like all the sheets get all turned up. But some people can sleep like a rock, and some people can hear the winds blowing and like, how did you sleep last night? Well, apparently Sabrina Williams, she sleeps like a baby. Thank you very much for sharing that comment with us. All right, I'm just checking in with you. Some of these notes might be old. I got to go to page 3. There's so many pages. Let's see. I got a note from Brianna. I'm looking at Sean. I'm looking at other notes that might have come in the last few minutes. Let's see, page 2. There's other notes here. We had Real Va Baby. That was a good handle. I like that. And I got a nice compliment. I know my sponsor will love this. Marco's Pizza is very good. I love it because they give back to the community, and I love it because their pizza is fantastic. But that's all I'll say about that for right now, and I hope you win, Sean. I hope you are selected. We'll be announcing some winners later on Thursday evening. Teresa has a question, if I can do my best to answer it. Where's the question? He said coastal flooding is going to be the issue. So I think Portsmouth is going to be okay. Probably so. I mean, I don't have a lot of concern if you're in Portsmouth that you're an area that always floods. I just did a spotlight there. I love the Old Town area of Portsmouth. I even got out to the Tidewater Community College, which is of course right next to the casino. Got a chance to see that part of Portsmouth. So there was a lot of things, and I fell in love with the Hoffler, if I said that right, the Hoffler Creek Preserve, the wildlife preserve, where they said watch out for ducklings, and I got attacked in a good way by a series of butterflies, and I was just very still. But I love being able to go out and hikes, and the Paradise Creek State Park was another great place that I discovered in my discoveries of Portsmouth. So Portsmouth gets maybe a bad rap. I love it, and if you have a chance and haven't been to Portsmouth lately, you owe it to yourself to check out some of the places that I just mentioned. Some of the parks too are fantastic. All right, so we go back. I'm going to clear off my telestrator. One of the things you will quickly note is that these bands are getting a little more intense. What are you looking at, Aldrich? I'm looking right here. Let's just stop this. Let's hit now. Okay, you notice it stopped looping, but we have the sweeps. I don't know if we need the sweeps on there. Let's turn that off. A little distracting. So here we have these little bands, right? These showers are coming in, and so they're not necessarily going to turn all cases yellow, orange, and red, which we usually can associate with convective storms that are producing some heavy rain. Tropical moisture, if I have my knowledge correctly, is usually the tropical drops are much smaller or more minute, and so you can get more bang for your buck, meaning you could get some very heavy rain, which doesn't look like heavy rain. It looks like it's just raining moderately, but if you're on boots on the ground, you're like, man, it was a downpour. And some of these bands may have that characteristic. Some of them could come in and drop a quick tenth, maybe a quarter inch of rain in a heartbeat. I mean, that doesn't sound like much, but if it's all moving, and we'll put it back in motion over the last 2 hours, it just suddenly flares up, and it's now moving down toward Hatteras, maybe back toward maybe around, say, Rodanthe. I can zoom in a little bit tighter so you can see. But yeah, it looks like these areas are getting some rain. Yeah, Rodanthe. So we'll put a stop to it just to show you what's happening. Maybe toward Salvo. We got rain coming toward Wanchese and Duck at this hour. Kill Devil Hills, maybe not so much at this point. But we mentioned the evacuation order that came down for parts of Kerala. But we've had them in effect for Hatteras first, and then Ocracoke followed suit. So these are the hot spots where their biggest concern will be the winds and the flooding both. They would get storm surge too. All right, so let me keep moving. What other did I want to share with you? Lows this morning. Well, this is kind of maybe it has less utility because it's only 1:30, Aldrich. I know. So what happens is the computer will come back, and what this computer will do is it will reset at midnight. So what you're looking at essentially is current temperatures are now the low temperatures of the day, but they will revise themselves. But as it gets cooler, if we drop much, I have a low expectation of 76. Right now it's 79 in both Norfolk and Hampton. So Norfolk, Hampton, your lowest point is our current temperature, which is 79. It'll change, I'm sure, by morning, but that's where we stand. And of course, similarly, highs today are going to match because it's still early, but it's one of the things the computer does. This is what I really wanted to get to. Because it's so tropical, the atmosphere, if you're sweating just walking between the parking lot and your car or from the workplace to the parking lot, this is probably why. Because dew points are oppressive and miserable. Well, how do you know that? Well, this is the gold standard. When you typically associate the temperature at which water vapor condenses, you start to feel very uncomfortable, and it's difficult with the evaporative cooling process to really take hold. But it's these numbers that are come tumbling down once we get Erin out of here, and that longer range forecast with the less humid air and the Canadian air comes down. These will be down in the low 60s. The lower 60s is going to feel like a miracle. Like, oh, I feel so good outside. We're not there yet, but we will be there. But right now, this hurricane off the coast has caused our dew points to go up, and they're +4 in Hampton. It's 3 degrees more humid right now in Newport News as compared to 1 in the morning last night, and it's +5 in Gloucester. So Gloucester's 5 degrees more humid than you were last night. So with many of these numbers still in the mid-70s, we're just not going to be able to break it. But when they drop in the low 60s, you'll be closer to comfortable, at least closer to comfortable than you are right now. I hope that makes sense. By the way, it's 1:30-ish. At the top of the hour, I'll do another cut-in on television because I'm doing double duty, but I wanted you to see where we're going to be as far as dew points. So if you're interested in less humid air, you're going to love Saturday. You're going to love Friday too if you can get through the winds, and this will be a cleanup day. Not everybody's going to have problems. Not everybody's going to have standing water. But if you've already washed out, and we know we have already seen the ocean overwash on portions of NC12, then we're going to see this maybe take a couple of days to get back to normal. That's how long it's going to take, which is a while. So just be patient, but I also want to give you some encouragement. Be patient in the forecast, because by the time we hit this weekend, when the sun is out, the humidity does drop, you will want to have good reasons to get out and just enjoy it if you're not a fan of the sticky weather. But clearly, you can see that Hatteras and really Virginia Beach are some of the, Virginia Beach and Hatteras are some of the hottest or highest dew point numbers on this map. Birmingham is at 73, but New York is 59, and where it turns a little white in the Adirondacks and especially up toward the Tug Hill Plateau, they're probably in the low 50s and upper 40s. So that's what's going to trickle down here in the days to come. Something to celebrate, or at least give you some comfort before you go to bed. Say, hey, it's going to be better eventually. These are the numbers right now around the country. Just wanted to show you where we stand. The temperature outlook we talked about will be much, much cooler in the heartland of like Missouri, the Ohio River Valley, the Tennessee Valley, and even knocking on the door in the mountains of Virginia and in western North Carolina, where that will be centered. And if you need more evidence of the cool, look at this future temperature. It's like a 10-day outlook, but it shows some of the cool Canadian air in green and yellow coming down the Great Lakes and eventually taking the edge off the heat that we will see as we head into the last few days of August. And even still, last day of August looks like it's more orange, but even that's still in that range of it's roughly about mid-70s, maybe upper 70s with no humidity. That's paradise compared to some of the, if you're not a fan of this sticky weather, you are going to love what's down the road. So just leave it at that at this point. All right, so just the temperature trend for the next couple of days. I expect we'll have a high today about 81, 80 for Friday, 82 Saturday, and yes, even though the new high, the new normal, is 86, we might warm up a little bit Monday, the 25th, before it goes back down. So it's going to be one of those things that may rise briefly. Don't see this necessarily being the big story as so much as the rainfall forecast. This tells the story maybe to a greater extent because it's taking an average. It does not handle tropical systems well. Most of these models have some form of limitations, but it would suggest maybe a third of an inch going into midday Friday for south side, third of an inch in Outer Banks. Like I said, it's not the rain that's the big story. It's the coastal influence of this storm known as Erin. That would be the bigger story. So at least today, you're still looking at temperatures in the 70s from Bloxham, Onancock, and Exmoor. Cape Charles, about 77 degrees, and the Outer Banks with high rip currents. Till Devil Hills and Nags Head around 80, 80 in Manio, and about 80 in Rodanthe, Hatteras, and Ocracoke. All right, so I want to come back on camera. I'm going to just reset because I do know it's about 1:35. I want to see if you have any questions for me. I know it's late. For some of you, it might be early. Who knows? Maybe you worked a third shift. Let me know. Maybe a show of comments. How many of you are working late? I got a note from Kyle. And again, these are questions that sometimes I may not have the expertise to answer, but since we're expecting a flood, are you wearing your high waters? No, but I did suggest to Tony Nargi he should. He was on the roof tonight when we did the 11 o'clock newscast. He had his anemometer, and it was like, I think the wind was three miles an hour, and he played it off well. It's not windy here, because that's all the wind was down across Hatteras at the time. But where he will have great utility on the roof tomorrow night is he can look down and see all the flooding from perhaps in Ghent during the course of the coastal situation. But yeah, good question. I laugh with it too, because it is one of the things that most times you get a big storm. Sometimes you like to see a reporter kind of working through the high water or the wind. Sometimes it makes for good TV. Certainly good YouTube moments for sure. I got other notes here. I'm looking at my comments. I'm also looking at the storm system here. Let me go back. I'm trying to see where we had. There it is. So when we were looking at the storm, let me come back here because I wanted to see the wind speeds. We're coming up on the that's 135 or so. One of the things that you'll notice is the effects of this storm are obviously going to be different depending on where you are. No big surprise. And if you have the opportunity to just talk to neighbors and ask them, hey, have you been through these types of events before, where you don't get a direct hit, but you get some aspects to it, like high surf, you get rip currents. Like I said, there are many people visiting us from out of town. They're not necessarily used to it. So just to recap where we are, we're now getting some new information. Looks like the 2 o'clock update has come in way early. It's now down to 105. If I want to verify that for you, that does appear to be where the computer's taking us. So let me go back full screen. 105 was down from 110. Correct? So 110 was where we were at 11 o'clock, and here we are now at, essentially we're now at almost 2 o'clock. It looks like the 2 a.m. update has come out. It has. Tropical storm continues. The conditions are occurring on the North Carolina Outer Banks as Erin turns to the north-northeast. Beachgoers are in fact cautioned. I'm reading to you what the Hurricane Center is saying in their note. Beachgoers are cautioned against swimming at most U.S. East Coast beaches due to life-threatening surf and rip currents. Last checked, it's now 200 miles from southeast of Cape Hatteras, and that's where things stand at the moment. Now, the summary is that they still have the storm surge warning in effect for Cape Lookout to Duck, and the tropical storm warning is in effect for Beaufort Inlet, North Carolina to Chincoteague, Virginia, including Pamlico and Albemarle Sound. So they even issued a tropical storm watch for Bermuda for its later turn when it might have a bigger impact over there. The center of Hurricane Erin was located is now moving, I should say, north-northeast at 17 miles an hour, and we can clearly see that from the top of the screen. So this is actually, some people ask, well, how could you get the 2 a.m. update? Sometimes when they're proactive and they've got maybe extra people on duty, I guess, you'll get this coming out maybe 10 or 15 minutes early. This looks like it's almost a half hour, at least 25 minutes out early. So at 2 a.m., we're at 105. This is now a Category 1 storm. Actually, Category 2. You need 96, for a Cat 2. So it's still a Cat 2. But the fact that the gusts are 130 would be a minimum Cat 4. So there's a lot of incongruency here. So it's a Cat 2, but it's got gusts as strong as 130 around the eye wall, which will not be affecting us here. We'll keep an eye on that. Sorry about the comment, brought that in. But so that's the latest on Erin as of 2 o'clock. So we got a bonus, and you can see it's 2 a.m. because the top of here, it says 2 a.m. And it's not your imagination. It really is about 1:38 in the morning. So we haven't quite gotten there. Now, what about the wind speeds? I did notice and have noticed that there was a 54 down here during about the 11 o'clock newscast. So now this has dropped to 47. This has increased to 54 or maintained 54. And now we're getting gusts here closer to 49. So is it any wonder when you continue to move in this direction, it's moving north-northeast at 17 miles an hour, that the forward speed, you're going to see more of these winds right in here, right? So now we're beginning to see some color in Currituck. We're beginning to see more color, that's the wind, in places like Chesapeake and Virginia Beach. That's not to say it's off the chart wind, but you got a wind right now in Rodanthe of 36 miles per hour. Cape Hatteras is at 39 and 33 in Manio. And of course the storm surge, I'm sure, is still coming on shore. So you've got big waves, you've got a lot going on, the flooding, the gusty winds, and of course the coastal areas, especially the Outer Banks, that we're watching unfold before our very eyes. Now, I've mentioned the tropical storm warnings. Our expectation is that these winds could easily be 20 to 35, but right there on the coast, it could maybe be more like 25 to 40 with gusts over 50. We've kind of highlighted some of that a little while ago. So what to expect if you're just joining us. I know it's late, so if you've been with me the whole time, appreciate your support. It is now just about 1:40, but storm surge of 2 to 4 feet is not going to be a picnic. Obviously, you're not going to have that if you're in the Richmonds and the Wilmingtons of the world, because those questions were out there. But again, it's primarily a coastal event where some of the areas in the Sound and the rivers could be affected with tidal flooding, and we'll be watching closely Thursday afternoon, Thursday night for high tide on places like Sewell's Point, and also Duck, North Carolina, where they could have high tide as early as 7 p.m. But the winds are generally going to be 20 to 40 at a minimum. That would be sustained. And then you've got 40 to 60 that could be on again, off again through the course of today. So this is a little 8-hour window from midnight to 8 a.m. is when I thought things could start to change dramatically. And if you're up because of the winds, let me know. I'll do my best to bring you some attention and also some recognition, because I don't want to be the only one on here talking away with all the graphics. I did that earlier tonight, and I want you to have the information, but I also want to see if you have any questions for me. Let me go back to the radar. This is the banding that's coming on. There are some showers clearly spinning into the Outer Banks. It's not affecting Virginia Beach, but it doesn't take much to zoom in a little bit tighter here and see that this is beginning to show up around Rodanthe, around, say, just south of Duck. It looks like a few drops have now moved over Roanoke Island. So you're probably going to get pelted with raindrops if you happen to be standing on the beach here and I'm not advising that at all, but if you were to be out there, that might be the end result of what you experience. Okay, got another notes here from Robin White. We were asked about oceanfront. We explained that a bit. I see Sabrina. Would love to get, let's see, Michael Matthews. Hello, sir. Got some nice, cool new names to me. Michael says, would love to get into the water, but don't have my fins and board no more. Do you know we just opened up, I say we, in Virginia Beach, if you're just visiting us. They just opened up this past Saturday the Atlantic Park Surf, which is kind of like, I think John Hood, our neighborhood reporter from Virginia Beach, described it like a kiddie pool. I wouldn't call it that, but it is like a wave pool. And so you get in the wave pool, and if you're new to surfing, it's a great place to learn, I would imagine, because you don't want to. You have a controlled environment. You can try and figure out how to get up on the board and stand long enough to feel like you're doing the exercise. But the Atlantic Park Surf is a great place, maybe when the weather's better, to learn how to surf. We had these surfing championships going on the last couple of days, and so a lot of the folks maybe just were salivating over the fact that we had an approaching hurricane. So it's not some of these surfers are like, they probably have a very high threshold for risk, but clearly want to keep them safe too. We don't want anybody to be unaccounted for when you've got high surf and rip currents that are raging high. Too many people are lost. In fact, if you need evidence of that, here it is. In the last 25 years, in the last quarter of a century, we have lost 192 people. That's 192 people. This is a sobering number. These are not numbers, these are people. But if you were to add the 41, the 25, the 20, the 16, the 14, it doesn't even come close to the 192. This is all, rip currents have taken away more people than tornado, flood, lightning, wind, and tropical combined. And that's kind of a real hard statistic. During the Rip Current Awareness Month, or maybe it was a week, Rip Current Awareness Week back in April, I was able to capture this graphic, capture this image. And a lot of us is like, you're out of town if you're like, first of all, they might not know or understand what a rip current is, but you got to know how to swim parallel to it. And it really is something you have to be aware of when you come to the ocean, because we lose too many people oftentimes to that occurrence. It occurs, it will happen, but we just want to make sure that you know how to wave for help, you know how to float, you know how to swim parallel to the coast, to the shore, and break the rip, or at least the effects of the rip if you're ever in one. But this is just not the time to be even in the water when you've got a hurricane, a Category 2 hurricane spinning off the coast. It's just not worth it. Everybody should at least value their own time and just not go in the water when it's that strong. Now, clearly, the enhanced satellite shows the power. All the coloring you see of the red, it's now pushing back toward the east, but the bands are still now coming in on shore. Look at this. If you are like, what's the wind in Elizabeth City? Well, now, I can tell you now, it looks like it's 31. But the others don't show a number, well, because they're not getting a gust. That's one of the great things about this computer is that it'll just populate a number when a gust applies. Right now, there's no wind gust in Williamsburg. There's no wind gust in Gloucester, but there is a 28-mile-an-hour gust in Currituck and in Norfolk at the moment. So keeping an eye on that. So we're going to keep on moving. I believe, we already looked at this. But some of the colors you can see here, this is another way that the computer will give us some at least interpret some of the colors. So you see this orange area here would suggest that the winds are probably getting a little bit stronger, certainly in some areas here. Maybe in parts of the sounds and the rivers might be seeing winds pick up as well. But right now, Hatteras seems to top the list that we can see, at least from the METARs, from the numbers that are coming in from the airports and from other sources. We're getting some strong winds. Satellite radar showing, again, more rain coming down from Rodanthe or going into the Rodanthe area, and this will continue on as so. So we're just looking at this and checking in with you. Now, as we looked at this, I've talked about this countless times, but just wanted to show you this. If you have a question, this would be a great time to share with me your thoughts. I know it's about 1:47 in the morning. Ooh, I got a good question from Katrina. Hello, Katrina. She says, is it Katina? My mistake. And it's Johnson. So she says, do you expect airline delays because of the wind? That's a fair question. And if they're trying to get in and out of maybe Newport News, I think they're probably fine. If they're trying to leave Norfolk International, you just want to call ahead. I mean, let's face it, and I'm not picking on airlines, but it doesn't take much. There could be delays simply because the plane that was supposed to connect here and there didn't get here in time, so suddenly you're standing around wondering what's going on. So yeah, it's always best to call ahead, and winds and weather can certainly slow the process down. So I know that they work tirelessly to get things back on track, just like the power companies do, the men and women who have to work in the power industry. They do a fantastic job to get power restored as quickly as possible. But anything is certainly within the realm of possibilities. Katina, thank you for the question. It's a good question to have. Now, the other notes I've been getting in here, looks like Christina, she was a follow-up about Wilmington, only a little wind here in North Carolina. Yeah, it looks like they've removed you, or maybe you never were, in the storm, or at least the tropical storm warning. It looks like the colors were maybe further north toward Ocracoke than it was necessarily Wilmington. But again, my focal point has been here in Hampton Roads and Northeast North Carolina. Other notes from Miss Ralston, I believe, had a question. The beach is closed as far as I know. Some of those beaches are closed probably for good reason. And as we heard from our neighborhood reporter, John Hood, he said some of the lifeguards aren't even going to be on the stands first thing tomorrow. So you want to make sure that you're not going in a place that's going to put you into danger. If you're a parent, make sure your kids know that if there's no lifeguard, even walking around just up to your ankles or up to your knees in water might not be a good move. It's just, you want to play it safe and just let this storm pass. There's no harm in that. It's probably better to play it safe than sorry. That's kind of how and I'm a father of 2 daughters, so I get the process. Coastal flood warning, we mentioned this is from 1 to 3 feet. We're talking about shorelines and tidal waterways here and rivers. But Thursday morning to Friday afternoon is when this will commence. So we still have some issues, a lot of issues still to play out once these winds begin to shift, and they're beginning to do so. It's almost 2 o'clock. Next 13 minutes, I got to go back downstairs and do another cut-in, and then we'll try and do something a little more off-topic. I mean, we'll do topics of Erin, but some things that we haven't covered, maybe a little bit more on current temperatures and so forth. But 5.8 is the concern for Sewell's Point. That's a moderate flooding concern as we approach 9 o'clock on Thursday. So if you are watching us and you are in around areas that typically flood, that knowledge of what's happening with Sewell's Point can help give you the intel of when things could get worse. And that could be when the afternoon and evening arrive and we start to see this ramp up toward 5.8. That's where I see things are going to be an issue for Sewell's Point. And of course the one in Duck might be significantly higher. We'll call it a major flood when you're closing in on Thursday at 7, and all of that is because of the water rise, the storm surge, the rise in water that comes in by way of Erin, because she's coming in and pushing that into these areas. Now, Sound and rivers will be about 1 to 3 feet for storm surge, Outer Banks about 2 to 4 feet, and we're still not even really at the peak of this event. I know it seems like if you're watching us from the Outer Banks, and you've been keeping an eye out the window and say it's this, that, or the other, increase it, because by the time we hit 6 or 7 in the morning, that's when things are going to get probably, as far as the wind, continue to reach fever pitch. This is where we see a storm surge. It extends all the areas in green, and we mentioned that about 9 to 12 feet will be what's expected, at least in the Virginia Beach area, by the time we hit high rip current risk during the course of today. Usually it occurs around low tide. I mentioned this, we can kind of cover this at another time, but I wanted to kind of keep moving. This is what I wanted to show you, is that if you are needing more evidence that the winds are, the winds are done. They're not done. They still have a lot more opportunity to grow. Once we get closer to 6 a.m., that's maybe when you're off to the bus stop or getting ready to go to school or getting ready on the bus. Wind speed's probably a much less factor here, but once you get into 38 or 63 or even 29 the eastern shore, now it's 43 and 60. So this is 8 o'clock. I'd say 6 to 8 is probably your worst winds. And if you lose power, you say, I'm sure glad I charged my phone. Glad that was a good thing I did that. I'm glad I got charged there. So just one of the things you might want to make sure, in case you lose power in the overnight, that you'll be ready to go and won't have any problems with it. We can only hope that just again, laying out possibilities of what's an uncertain tropical system. How far does it bring over? Because even if it moved, as it did, 35 miles for tropical storm force winds and about 25 miles further on the hurricane force winds, it moves the coloring inland. So it affects more in Currituck County, affects more in and around, say, maybe Dare County. And that's why you just want to play it safe. That's all we're trying to get communicated, is that sometimes these things will, in fact, change. Now, what happens at 1 o'clock this afternoon? Still pretty strong. I mean, now the winds are more northerly or northeasterly, but all the colors in red and over Dare County turning purple, you could be closing in on 50-mile-an-hour gusts. And you're like, this has been going on all day. And now it's 7 o'clock at night and it's still very windy in Dare County. This is why beach erosion, extensive beach erosion, will be top of mind. If it's not already top of mind, it's only likely to get worse, and then it will eventually will slowly begin to retreat. So just keeping an eye on that as I look more at your comments. I got to do downstairs, I'm going to do another quick cut in, and then we're going to change gears for the third and likely final hour, as we'll have Miles Henderson coming in to update us through the morning hours, because we do a morning show on television. If you're new to our area, it's a CBS affiliate here at WTKR. It's a great web page if you're looking for our live blog and more information at your fingertips. A lot of thought has been put into that live blog at WTKR.com, and I encourage you to check that out. And you can do that at any time from your phone or desktop if that is what you so desire. Now, we're going to continue the live stream coming up a little bit, but as I talked about this at the beginning, this seemed like a very, let me see if I can move this back. Yeah, this is what I wanted to put back on here. If you have a comment or question, I will do my best to. We heard from Katina about the airline delays, possible delays, as some people may be headed to bed. We talked about Wilmington, North Carolina to some degree. Those who want to maybe gawk at waves, we talked about that a little bit, and whether or not people should go places. We had somebody who said they wanted to go to Sandbridge tomorrow. Again, you can do what you want to do, but I know that Sandbridge doesn't have a lot of roads in and out, and with the traffic the way it is, and people who might want to just, get a selfie or a quick video with the wind blowing through their hair, I don't advise that. I don't advise that simply for the fact that you'll probably feel disappointed if you get trapped or stuck. As some people, we had some video of people getting stuck down in Dare County. They couldn't get anywhere. Their tires were getting stuck in the sand, like they were stuck in the mud. And I'm sure they wish now that hadn't happened to them. So I don't want that to be what happens to you. Again, thankful for Marco's Pizza. We'll be giving away free pizza. But as I take this full screen, I just want to remind you, I'm going to go downstairs. The live stream's not over. We got the third hour coming up. You mean you've talked for nearly 2 hours? I have. This is what I do. But I will tell you that some of the things that maybe you're still not quite sure about, maybe you caught this midstream and there's still some follow-up questions, you can do that and coordinate your questions when I come back. But I also want to remind you that you can also sign up for some free pizza. I mean, why not? If you're going to have to go through the storm, why not have some comfort food? Marcos.com is the place for the pizza, but the sign up for the free giveaway happens every Thursdays. It's WTKR.com. Marcos, we also have a special giveaway, or they're giving away the Pozzoli, which is like a calzone or stromboli, for just $5. They're normally about twice the price, maybe $8 or $9 usually. My personal favorite is the pepperoni and sausage. And if it's comfort food you're looking for, maybe you want some marinara or ranch dressing to dip it in, just use the promo code WTKR, that's our call letters, and then my first name. So WTKR David, you can get a Pozzoli for $5. I mean, given the fact you're spent 2 or 3 times that at a drive-through, you're going to love the Pozzoli if you haven't tried Marcos. But we want to give you for free pizza for a year. It's a certificate. We're giving one away tomorrow night, and we'd love to have you participate. But again, only 5 locations in the 757 that will be participating in this contest. So if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. Anyway, we'll come back. If you're watching TV, if you flip it over, you'll see me. I'm going to be cutting in, as they say, for maybe 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds, just to update folks on the weather and what to expect. We have obviously the 2 a.m. update already on the computer. The Weather Service was quick to deliver that number for us, as they probably know other people in Hampton Roads and the Outer Banks. We're eager to know what's Erin doing now. Well, it's now down to 105. It was 110 at 11 o'clock. It's now 105, so it's decreased just 5 miles an hour. But we'll have more updates on coming up. But this, I'm going to leave it on this. I'm going to mute my microphone. I'm going to go downstairs, but I'll be back in about 5 minutes. No biggie. And if you're in a new audience, we'll just discuss it. And if there's some new things you want to share, let me know. But I would love to give you some free pizza a little bit later this evening. Once we get through this, maybe you just want some comfort food. You stayed up late this late. You've stayed up this late. Might as well be in the running for some free pizza from Marcos, who gives back a lot to the community. But I'll be back in a few moments. And stay safe. Let me know if you're experiencing some deteriorating beach conditions, or if you have a family down in the Outer Banks. That way we can start a whole new hour at 2 or maybe 2:05 a.m. But thanks for being here. I appreciate your support. Okay, Hampton Roads, Northeast North Carolina. I'm back. Thank you for being patient with me. I've been juggling, kind of like, you run downstairs, you do the TV, you come back and do some live streaming. Why not? You don't get these events every day. I do this because I love you. That's why I'm doing this. This is like nobody's telling me you got to stay there until this late hour. But for me, this is an example to kind of get in touch with the neighborhoods, and that would be yours. If you have a comment, you have a question, I'll do my best. You see some of these maps had moved. That was me moving them from the TV side, but maybe you saw some of these slides to give you some critical information that you might not have known, or if you're just joining us, I'm glad that you're here. It is now 2:05, and we did get an update from the Hurricane Center that dropped this from 110 to 105, so that's the summary. Still Category 2, and it's located, the center of circulation. The center of circulation is 200 miles precisely from the south-southeast side of Cape Hatteras. So Cape Hatteras is kind of like a point that we're watching, and it will change as we're getting a little concerned more about Bermuda down the road. They've already issued some watches for them in the tropical category. But I want to say hi to you if you have a special call or have a note. I'm looking at, that's like 3 pages of notes. Some of these are going back when we started this 2 hours ago. But I wanted to thank you for your time on being on here. Let's see, we've answered this question. Audrey wanted to know about schools. Will Hurricane Erin affect the schools in Norfolk? That is a decision, thankfully, beyond my pay grade. Usually that can sometimes be decided by a superintendent who oftentimes will consult someone either in the emergency manager field of Norfolk, or perhaps maybe even a National Weather Service might be advising them down the road. But we'll see what happens. Again, the winds are going to be part of this story. But let me go back, if I could. I want to show you what we saw. Maybe not so much the tropical storm warning. I think many of us are past this, but it's the fact that these are the new 2 a.m. temperatures. 2 a.m. Wind gusts. Shows you how long I've been here. 47.58. So now if I take this full screen, what's interesting is that the winds are picking up on some of the buoys. And when you get that, there could be some of that coming on shore. So the system is like spinning like a figure skater, right? The fact that the arms are way out, it's a very large storm, a very large hurricane. Winds gusts are around 47 in some of the buoys, but now we've seen the highest gust we've seen in Hatteras. But I think it's worth noting where you see some color here, these winds are pretty strong. And where you see orange, it could be well over 30. Maybe in interior sections of Dare County, also very strong. But we have 40 at Hatteras, we have 35 in Rodanthe, and this is at 2 a.m., right? So we get these updates typically at the top of every hour, but these gusts in Virginia Beach seem pretty tame at 25, but Currituck's approaching 30. So Manio right now in Roanoke Island has a 31 mile an hour gust, and Kitty Hawk at 25. If you are watching, if you're up, maybe you can't sleep, just let me know. I'd love to say hi to you. I really appreciate for those of you who have gone to bed, and I'm glad if you're able to sleep. That's where most of us should be this time of night, typically, unless, of course, you work the third shift. Maybe you work the overnight period, and this is just normal opportunities to be up. But as I say, if you've got other issues, let me know. Audrey had a question. It was maybe a couple hours ago. Let me go ahead and clear off my telestrator. If I don't clear off my telestrator, then it kind of bleeds onto the map, or onto the comment. This is a note from Audrey Ward. She said, I have a condo at Virginia Beach, oceanfront, on the second level. Should I be concerned? No. Now, I do remember, if you're old enough to remember 2005 in Wilma took out some glass and high rises in Miami. That was a storm. But this is staying out to sea, right? The all intents and purposes, the effects of it might be tropical storm force, but we're not going to be dealing or worried about second level oceanfront properties in Virginia Beach. It's just going to be a little windy, and it might, in some cases, maybe not Virginia Beach, but other areas around, maybe rural areas, that where trees could be susceptible to falling. We could lose power in a few spots. But that's one of the nice things about having a newscast. We'll have that first thing at 4:30 and 5 this morning with Miles Henderson, and the entire WTKR News 3 channel staff are going to be giving you updates on what's been happening. We've got reporters strategically placed throughout the region, and we'll be able to give you more updates than I am able, because it's just me giving you the information here. But as I put this back on the screen, I just wanted you to see the 2 a.m. wind gusts right now are in fact picking up. And I mean, let's face it, what is tropical storm force? Somebody was like trying to tell me what I know is 39 to 73. That's a big range though. 73, you need 74 to be a hurricane, but if you're going to be that strong, 40 fits in the range, right? Hatteras is now dealing and can verify they've had a tropical storm force gust. It's not just a gust, but it's still early. I said this would unfold most likely between midnight and 8 a.m., and we're only 2 hours into my 8-hour swath of time. Doesn't mean the problem ends at 8 a.m., but that's when most of us in Virginia Beach and others are going to say, hey, did you know it was windy this morning? Yeah, I heard that weather guy talking. It was going to be windy, but is it windy now? Oh, yeah. So this is the conversation or something like it you have maybe with your family as you wake up. Some of you are going to be pretty surprised to see how much the beach has changed in terms of the waves and maybe some of the coastal flooding. Also, the fact these winds are probably going to start to increase from here. They could be considerably high. You could be probably another 10 or 15, 20 miles an hour faster in these areas. Like it could be 60 or more in parts of the Hatteras and parts of the southern part of the Outer Banks. All right, so talked about the tropical storm warnings. I want to come back on camera. I also want to check your comments. If you have some thoughts that you're worried about, we mentioned what to expect is really the overwash that's over portions of North Carolina 12. Storm surge is going to be generally 2 to 4 feet. Tidal flooding will be the big concern as we head into tonight, Thursday afternoon and evening. We're talking about generally the times around 7 to 9. But let's just stop here for just a second. Look what's happening. Clearly, it's not a lot of rain. And to be fair, a lot of rain was not the top of mind. And we were not expecting tornadoes. We were not expecting heavy rain everywhere, but you could get some bands, and that's what we're seeing. Now, if this, what you see here, continues for another 4 hours, what if it lasts another 5 hours? Then it's going to be like really annoying, and it might be cumulative. That's the point I'm trying to articulate. This pattern that you're seeing unfold right now may be prolonged, so the point where you wake up tomorrow morning and you're in the Outer Banks and you're like, boy, I'm glad I evacuated Hatteras, or I'm glad I cleared out of Ocracoke and did that. So if that's, well, I mean, don't second guess yourself. You did the right thing if that's what you've had to do. And I think the local officials were smart to do what they did by issuing that mandatory order. Now, the front that's back here, and I'll come back on camera, this is the front that's been a front for sore eyes. You like that? It's a front for sore eyes. It's helping in some degree to help steer this big storm off of our shoulders. So Erin is here, the front is over West Virginia and over toward Knoxville, East Tennessee, and it's going to help steer it away. It just takes a little bit more time. And the concern was, or why this was such a forecasting challenge, it wasn't the fact we didn't know it was not going to make landfall. It's the question of how close was it going to be to Bermuda? How close was it going to be to Hatteras? And to be fair, it cheated. It leaned more toward Hatteras than it did Bermuda, at least at this part of the storm cycle. So we're keeping an eye on the track. We're keeping an eye on the timing. We know, even though it's 2:14 or so in the morning, that some of it haven't had much effects yet. But the operative word is yet, because it could unfold even more so in the afternoon tomorrow when the winds are still busy, and now we're beginning to see more wind gusts. Ooh, your map didn't have but one or two. I know. When we started this, I think we had Manio and maybe Currituck. I think that was it, or at least maybe before the 11. But now, all of a sudden, we started to add them up. You know, like, what am I talking about? I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hey, that's kind of cool. 10. We got 10 observations. So honestly, it's just one of those things that when this system comes a little bit closer, it's 200 miles away now from Hatteras. What's it going to look like when it's even closer? So this is what we're watching. This is what we're going to keep a watchful eye on. We're not done there entirely. So the satellite radar showing you the showers over toward Verdanthe. Got some rain that's still coming down the Outer Banks. And some of these areas that are getting rain are getting a lot of rain. It's not necessarily going to turn red or purple for intensity, but I can assure you, because it's tropical in nature, it's very humid. When it rains, it pours. Those bands could drop 1 to 2 inches of rain over the course of today. Hurricane Erin, we heard and noted from the Hurricane Center that 80 miles went to 105 for hurricane force winds away from the center. And then the 230 miles changed to 265. for tropical storm force winds away from the center. So that's why you can't focus just on the cone. Coastal flood warning for all these communities, the tidal waterways, the shorelines. These are the spots you have to be most concerned about. I know a lot of 1 to 3 feet doesn't sound like much, but it can be a lot, especially if the high tide is enhancing the conditions. So I'm looking at the big old one there. Let me turn that off and go back to the radar. Go back to the regular telestrator. But when we highlight this, it's only for your benefit that you're going to see at Sewell's Point, for example, a significant rise in the coastal flooding by the time we hit tomorrow afternoon and evening. It's just going to be slowly ramping up. Duck, North Carolina might be significantly more. We could classify that as a major flooding going on as we approach 6 and 7 p.m. Thursday. It's just part of the territory. And the storm surge we mentioned, about 1 to 3 feet. That's something we're watching too. All right, so let me come back on camera. I want to check your comments. I also want to reset some other maps we haven't shown. I've been doing this since about midnight. I think maybe shortly after midnight. And I've been doing this because when you have a storm that's coming in, I know because I had it when I was a kid, maybe 5 or 6, talking about storm anxiety. How many of you who've stayed up with me this long have a little bit of that case? Like, I just want to make sure that it's going to be okay, and I'm here to tell you it's going to be okay. Right? We're going to get through this. We've been through worse. It's one of those things that you're not going to solve all of the life's problems by staying up all night watching me to figure out, am I going to be okay? I'm here to tell you, you can go to bed, rest easy, you're going to be fine. But we have to be serious about when we get these events that people don't just dismiss it and say, oh, that's way out in the middle of the ocean where the cone is. I'm fine. That could get you into a heap of trouble simply because it doesn't communicate the full message of what we can see or will see in some cases. So I'm looking at my maps. I'm looking at some things that we didn't show or didn't highlight before. One of those things, I believe, is this. I'm going to get to the 7-day forecast. How many of you would like to see the 7-day forecast? Let me get this on the screen, and hopefully I can get this. But one of the things I'm looking to do is with this platform is just to communicate with you what I can't communicate with you in a 3-minute weathercast. Even when I've gone downstairs for 30 seconds or 90-second quick little cut in, I can't necessarily answer everybody's questions just from doing a 30-second stand up on camera. It's just it's physically impossible to do that. So I like to do the live streams because it kind of fills in the gaps. It also gives you a sense of where I'm coming from because I don't have all the answers, but I do put a lot of time and effort in looking at the data and looking at the forecast so that you're not left flat-footed. I don't want anybody to have weather surprise them, right? That's the key. So let me show you this. This is the forecast for the next 7 days. I mentioned there's about a 60% chance that we get some rain, if not this morning, later this afternoon. So Hurricane Erin will have its greatest impacts on our region today. And why it says Friday, you'll have to forgive me, because we moved to midnight. That's why. But this is a good teachable moment for computer scientists out there, because this is actually today. This is Thursday. And you can assume that this is Friday, F-R-I, and then this is Saturday, and this is Sunday. So this is my workaround. This is my workaround when the computer resets the day for you when you pass midnight. And I just didn't catch it fast enough because I wanted you to have the actual forecast. So Thursday, if I have this right, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, so that's right. So the numbers are correct, but the day of the week obviously got all discombobulated. But I wanted you to have the information that this is where, when dew points are in the low to mid 60s, Saturday night or Friday night, Saturday is going to be great as far as comfort. It only gets a little bit stickier once we go back into early next week and the lows get back to 70. A lot to be said in there, but just want you to have some intel. Oh, and there's this. This is going to be fun. I want to thank Miles Henderson, our senior meteorologist and morning meteorologist, who does trivia questions at noon. So if you watched the noon yesterday, you might know the answer to this question. But how many times have we had an Erin in the Atlantic Basin? A little bit of a tidbit. We recycle names every 6 years. That means some names could be reused every 6 years unless it causes a lot of damage, like a Katrina, and then they retire it. Or a Helene. It was retired last April of this year. So Helene, no more. We won't use her name anymore. We're not going to use Milton. Milton was in the Atlantic, in the Gulf last year, so that was retired. But my question is, how many times, if you have a guess, let me know. That way I'll know somebody's still watching. 1, 3, or 7. Anybody know? Maybe you watched me earlier today. Maybe you watched Miles. But if you have the answer, let me know. That way I'll know I'm watching somebody who is actually watching here at 2:18, 2:20 in the morning. So again, just to recap, we have a very interesting storm, obviously Erin, but this is not, or is it, the only time she's been in the Atlantic, or have we had 3 or 7 options? That's the question in hand, and if you have the answer, I'll be sure to recognize you. I know it's late, and some of you might watch this a little bit later. That's sometimes the way it goes. I'm looking at page 3. There's like 3 pages of comments. There's been quite a few to come through since we started. Oh, I got a note from Christina. Thank you, Christina. I have somebody's watch. She made me feel good. Christina, thank you for watching, and also I hope that you're not staying up too late past your bedtime or mine, because I usually go to bed, usually by 2. But this is one of the things that when you have special storms like this, it can happen. But your answer, if I have this, is 3, and the answer is, thanks to Miles for doing the work, is 7. I was astonished. 7 times. That's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? But the fact that this has been recycled time and time again, that's what makes it remarkable. But I want to go ahead and put this on the screen because it happened in 1989 as a hurricane. It happened in 1995 as a hurricane. And it happened in 2001 and this year. And as a tropical storm, it was a tropical storm in 2007, 2013, and 2019. I mean, it's just remarkable. And yet, it still hasn't been retired because at this point, it hasn't caused that much mayhem and mischief. Usually there has to be some loss of life, and it usually has to have cost billions of dollars of damage, like they retired Helene for reasons, obviously, that come to mind. But maybe Erin doesn't get retired, and maybe she'll go on, this storm rather will go on to maybe an 8th time. But Erin has been around quite some time, for sure. All right, so that's where we were. I won't go back to the 7-day because I've got obviously some the naming or the dates, the names of the cities at the top are a little bit off. But I can go back and look at some of these other maps as we'll come back on camera. Let me reset some of these things that we have looked at so far. Less of an interest now in forecasting things is just kind of nowcasting. Where are we right now? Right now, the issue seemingly is the fact that we've got this storm now 200 miles away from Cape Hatteras. So at 2 a.m., the 2 a.m. update, which was really done closer to about 1:35 or 1:40, it did come out very early. This storm is now at that juncture. It is now 2:21. I'm going to likely wrap things up at the top of the hour as our own Miles Henderson will be in here just not too far from now, and he will be updating you not only on the live blog on WTKR.com, but you can also get updates on our app. Our app is awesome. If you haven't looked at it, our WTKR app is called the First Warning Weather app, and we'll be able to give you more information as well. So if you're just joining us, you just happen to wake up because you have to get up this time of the morning, we're still looking at a storm that is a Category 2. It did decrease from 110 to 105, and it has winds that are still in the Category 2 range. Even though the wind gusts are 130, if you had a storm of 130 max winds, that would be a Category 4. So it's got wind gusts of Category 4, but 105 is a Category 2 storm. And Hurricane Erin, as you can see here, clearly is getting awfully close. Maybe to the point where some people would say it is too close for comfort, right? Too close for comfort. When you're at 945 millibars, it dropped 20 millibars yesterday, which is a sign of intensification, a sign of a storm getting stronger, and really a sign like when you talk about a figure skater pulling their arms in. It's getting stronger, but sometimes it relaxes and it's like now it's showing off. The storm gets wider. It was 500 miles wide, which is why there was so much concern that how far is this thing going to go? And when they go through this, basically the rapid intensification, but then sometimes that eye wall replacement cycle, then it can really, it's like it flexes its muscles several times, like Wilma did. Wilma had several rapid intensification cycles that are still on the books to this day. But as far as the gusts, it's up to 130, and it's moving now north-northeast. That's what you want to see. So for the next update that will likely come around 4 or 5 in the morning, likely probably about 5. Every 3 hours we're getting updates. This is the fact that there's an NE on there. Before, it was just moving north, right? But now it's kind of like moving a little bit more northeast, and it's doing so at 17 miles an hour. Still throwing back the bands of rain here, but this will only get better for us once this thing turns or begins to pivot to the north and east. But the winds are obviously going to still be a factor. Now look at this. It's not even the top of the hour, and those buoys have now suddenly shown its strength, right? 63. Do you see what I see? Oh, we're right around 2 in the morning. We're around 6Z Zulu. It's getting, it's starting to flex its muscle. So you've got 51 here. You got 38 and then 29. So yeah, the winds down toward Myrtle Beach and Wilmington are not as strong over the open water. Maybe here. Now this buoy here is about 225 miles southeast of Hatteras. But some of these are getting a little bit closer, and that's why I say the winds are going to be the first part that you experience. Once we get into the latter part of the day, I think it's going to be the flooding. So it's like a 1-2 punch where Mother Nature, in this case Erin, starts to take hold, and we start to see these winds really start to show up. In fact, if you look closely, you can even see it. You can see the coloring. It's really beginning to fill in. Now we have a 30-mile-an-hour gust in Currituck. We have a 35 in Rodanthe. And when we signed off, or actually it was still during the A block of the 11 o'clock news, neighborhood news reporter John Hood had said he'd been out there all day around Virginia Beach, and maybe it was further south, but he had said it's just gotten worse. Like the winds are not letting down. They're not letting up. They're kicking back up. And so it is clearly showing the colors across northeast North Carolina and in interior sections, right? Because, I mean, here's Bertie County. It doesn't have the coloring that maybe back toward Chowan, perhaps maybe Pasquotank or Perquimans are experiencing. These winds are all filling in, and even Virginia Beach is showing signs of strengthening gusts, all thanks to Erin, who is in the Atlantic at this time. So is it possible we get over 50? Yes. Is it possible we could see sustained winds as high as 25 to 40? Yes. But I suspect it's more like 20 to 35 for most of the day. That it will depend on several factors, but that's my expectation. Right now in Norfolk, we have a northeast wind at 18, and it's gusting to 28. So it's still mostly cloudy, and temperature's about 79 degrees. So we talked about the ocean overwash, the storm surge, and the tidal flooding. It's just a matter of time how long this is going to persist, and I think it will do so right through this morning, and then you're still going to get some very gusty winds this afternoon with an additional challenge with the flooding. So thank you so much for playing along with me there, Christina. She's on here thanking me. I'm glad that you're here because, you know, like I said, I'm not doing this because I'm being compelled to do it. I'm here because I just want to do it. I spent maybe, I said early on, about 2.5 hours or more during Helene when I worked in Tennessee, and live streaming is just something that was easy for me to do because it was something I like to do. There was some of the information that I was able to present was useful for those who received it, so maybe it was a win-win for everybody. I enjoyed doing it, and people enjoyed getting some of this information. So if you're not watching local news, you're not watching our websites, WTKR.com, or in other cases, Marcos.com for pizza, this information will hopefully give you a general idea of what to expect. The overwash is obviously the biggest concern for the Outer Banks and the storm surge of 2 to 4 feet. But the tidal flooding will be the second punch of this event, because I think the winds will start up, and then when the winds begin to pivot more to the northeast, then we're going to see more of the problems with the high tide. And then, of course, power can sometimes come out. Trees can come down, and you hardly know it or notice it until all of a sudden it's gone. So tell me this, as we look at this a little more closely, where are we getting some issues? Let's see if I'm in some of these areas that you might be in right now. If you're in Rodanthe, I imagine, or in Salvo, or Hatteras, I assume they've already evacuated, or maybe areas around Avon, I've had different pronunciations of that town when I lived in upstate New York, but Hatteras is getting some very moderate rain now in the yellow areas on the east side of town. As you can see, they've got some issues there. Move up further north, looks like it's dried out for the moment around Roanoke Island and Wanchese. Kill Devil Hills and Duck also seeing some dry weather apparently at the moment. Elizabeth City, and if we move further north, it looks like maybe a few sprinkles trying to show up if that even reaches the ground, but that would be potentially north of Greenbrier, where a few drops of rain might be transpiring at this point in time, around 13 and along Interstate 64. So all this to say, with this storm system now just coming, at least the bands, we'll call it the bands coming ashore, we just have to give way to this process. Like I said, I can't control it, I can't speed it up, but this thing could get a little bit worse before it gets better. I've got some very nice complimentary words from Christina. Thank you so much. She is telling me she's appreciative. We were playing that trivia game, if you just watched us, about how 7 times the name Erin has been in the Atlantic Basin. Because if you're going to recycle something every 6 years, sometimes unless you retire it, it's going to come back like a bad penny. And now we've had, for the 7th time, Erin back on the Atlantic Basin stage. But thank you so much, Christina Cotton. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a blessed night. Stay safe if you have to be out and about first thing in the morning. I don't know how quickly people have to be somewhere, but sometimes you start getting to that 5, 6, 7 a.m., man, I got to get to the bus stop, or I got to get to work. I got to, fill in the blank. Everybody has a different schedule, so I just know that sometimes when the weather's not perfect, it can add an extra element to the morning commute, which is why we have the likes of Connor Hollingsworth. He keeps track of all the traffic for us, and Miles will be updating us with the weather as I will pass the torch to him in less than 30, 45 minutes or so. So thank you for staying up with me. As we look again at the map, I just want to point out to you, this will not be a heavy rain maker. We can cross off the word tornadoes. I know there was some thought when you have an approaching storm, usually that can occur, not always, but usually that can occur on the east side of the eye, or east side of the eye wall, and we're not on that side of the ledger. So I don't think or want anyone to assume or presume that we're going to get a tornado, even though we're going to get a lot of wind over the course of the next couple of hours. The front that's back toward West Virginia and back toward East Tennessee will continue to help guide. That's the word I'll choose to use. Will help guide Erin back out to sea, and hopefully goodbye and good riddance, because we don't necessarily want this to prolong any more time than it has. Obviously, we've been fixated on it for more than a week, and some people would like to make sure that it's out of here as fast as humanly possible. But enhanced satellite shows a lot of the orange areas from the Jersey Shore down towards southeast Virginia. Notice it does not include Myrtle Beach, certainly does not include Wrightsville Beach. Wilmington is not included, but it does pick up in some areas. And you might be asking, where is that picked up? I can zoom in a little bit tighter. Looks like you begin to start just on the other side of Wilmington. So basically, if you're in the Morehead City area, you're under the tropical storm warning, but Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach is not included in that warning whatsoever. And further north, if you have family in New Jersey, it looks like they kept it on just right through some of the beaches up toward Toms River and, of course, Atlantic City. Those are the spots they're dealing with. Now, the wind speeds are just like a tip of the iceberg as they begin to show signs of increasing. A lot of folks will either assume this was a nothing burger, or it was kind of like, ho-hum, I'm just glad it's over. But we're beginning to see winds pick up in Elizabeth City now at 31. I see another note from Elizabeth City here, 31. Let's circle that. But the highest winds right here seem to be like Manteo and Elizabeth City, and they're really kind of tame, all things considered, elsewhere. So that's where that is. But 67 is a pretty strong gust. We've mentioned 40 in Hatteras, and this is all kind of colored in. Looks like someone took a box of colored pencils and have filled in northeast North Carolina and parts of Hampton Roads. It's even showing signs of winds increasing on the eastern shore. If you look closely up here, there's some coloring there. So winds are in fact increasing. Maybe it's 20, 25 or so in yellow, but it is getting sharply stronger in purple, which would include parts of the areas in North Carolina. Now, I want to kind of recap one other thing. If you have a note, a comment, I'm in a great conversation with Christina. She's been very kind enough to let me know she's still on the call. And I thank you, Christina, because one of the things that make this special, right, when things start to unfold, some people just need some reassurance, and that's what I wanted to do with this platform. This was something that we've tried it different ways. I've tried a guest this week. I had my first live guest via kind of like a Zoom call, but importing the comments seemed to be the most efficient way to get the conversation rolling without necessarily derailing the topic. Right? If somebody tries to ask a question and it's audio, they could ask a question that's completely off topic, but this way it's nice to be able to talk to everybody as best I can through the comment section. What else is going on? I see, who else? The radar. Yeah, we can see a few showers. Looks like a few drops of rain are now beginning to move to Virginia Beach. Isn't that new? That's a new little wrinkle here at 2:35 as I'm going to be wrapping up at the top of the hour. I just want to reiterate that we'll get through this. Storm anxiety, if you've ever had it, maybe you had it when you were a kid. I used to really get scared from thunderstorms when I was like 5 or 6. I outgrew that pretty quickly, and I had just a love for snowstorms because when they canceled school, I was thrilled when I could hear it on the radio that my school district was closed. Maybe you remember the radio would be where you would get that, but back in the day, that was the only place to hear it in real time, was waiting for them in alphabetical order, mind you. Here's the school districts that are closed, and you're like, yay! So anyway, coming back on camera, you can see a few of these sprinkles showing up in Virginia Beach. So is this a heavy rainmaker? No. Is this going to be rain everywhere? No. But is it a direct result of the approaching storm? Of course it is. I mean, you don't have to be an atmospheric scientist or a rocket scientist to figure that. Those drops are coming out of, we got a very humid atmosphere. During the last hour, we focused on the dew points in the mid-70s, so it feels awfully sticky, very, very tropical. And that's how these storms live. They live with high dew points, so it comes with the territory to be this sticky. But clearly, just an hour ago, we didn't have as much rain as we do now, and it's coming down in yellow around Hatteras. So these are the spots that we have to take note of. I got to come back on camera because my computer is all of a sudden having issues, and I don't want it to be. Yep, you know what's happened is they've suddenly found reasons to restart, and I got to get this back up and running. So anyway, let's see here. Let me pull this back up, and hopefully, if not, my computer may be saying I'm done for the evening, because that could be a possibility. If Miles is here and he's updating the computer, that might be also part of the issue. So anyway, want to thank you so much for your time. This is one of the things that hopefully these experiments, when the real storms hit, you know, like the Isabels or the Irenes or the Matthews, when those storms come back, we'll have a better sense of how do we react as a community, how do we react as a neighborhood. Do we cross our arms and say, well, we'll see, or I'll believe it when I see it? I think hopefully now, if you've been with me for even a portion of the time, from midnight to now, then you know that there are increasing winds affecting the Outer Banks. The winds are picking up, storm surge is a factor, beach erosion is a big factor, and soon we're going to exasperate, I think, the coastal flooding for the second half of our Thursday and into Thursday night. So a lot to take in there, but I'm very thankful for you. Maps have gone dark because of obviously the issues I've had with some of the information. But anyway, hope you guys have a great night. If you have any questions, please go to WTKR.com. That's where the live blog is, so we have more information that's there at your fingertips. I would encourage you to, if you have an opportunity, sign up for some free pizza. Marcos wants to give away free pizza. You're like, who does that? Well, they do that. They're a big fan of weather, but WTKR.com/Marcos is the place to go. And what's really nice is that when they are open, and they're not open at 2 in the morning, mind you, you can also sign up for not only the free pizza, but you might want a $5 Pizzoli when they typically cost about twice that. And the only way to get that is if you use the promo code, which is our call letter, WTKR David. That's the focal point there, as well as the deal of the week. This is something that's only good through Saturday, and then that promo disappears. But lastly, we're going to be giving away a certificate, which looks like this. This certificate is a pizza certificate for a year, where you are entitled to one topping pizza monthly for a year, and then you just check your box. So it's really kind of cool that regard anyway. And again, wanted to let you know that pizza is there. I look forward to Thursdays for that purpose. One of the many reasons is because I like to give away free pizza. It's a pretty cool part of the job. So you just want free pizza. So we just kind of like dish it out, and we have fun with Marcos in that regard. So just to recap, I know that some of you might be saying, what is he going on and on about? We have now seen an increase. We've seen a big increase in winds in some parts of the region. As what we've talked about is the location, the coastal areas, and last but not least, as I come back, wanted to show you the latest update with Hurricane Erin. Has now winds gusting around 67 out in the buoy areas, but if we come back into this part of North Carolina, winds are gusting around 40 miles per hour. All right, it is now about 2:40. It's gone on long enough, but I do appreciate your time. I'll have another update, most likely on television, in about the top of the hour. Please get some sleep, get some rest, and look out after each other. It's one of the things I like to kind of drive home, because if we don't look out after each other, we're all we got. I mean, let's face it, we are our neighborhood, whatever neighborhood you're in, that's who represents us. We got to look out after each other. you'd want them to do that for you, and vice versa. So like I usually like to say, it doesn't matter if the weather is sunny, doesn't matter if it's serious, or if a hurricane is off the coast. Every day, every evening, every overnight is a gift. We'll see you here. Make the most of it in your neighborhood. We'll see you here tomorrow. Take care.